Hey everybody, welcome on our channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Koopa, Goomba and Shygal. Huge shout out to Mad Raptor Fanfiction for this story. If you are new on the channel, don't forget to subscribe our channel and like the video too. So without wasting any more time, let's start the story. Mayan and I so wanted that baby. Four women walked together, covered completely in clear saliva to show that they had recently been in the mouth of something dangerous. The first girl, the speaker, had tanned skin with bright blonde hair that covered her eyes, with an eye-shaped hair clip on her head in the shape of Koopa eyes, which fit with the fact her blonde hair was shaped like a Koopa's head. She had an athletic build to her, though with rather large breasts. She wore a plain white tank top with extremely short green shorts and matching green boots. She walked with her arms behind her head, mostly unaffected by the ordeal they went through. Koopa, though not a normal Koopa, since most of them had the appearance of monsters. The second girl, completely silent, just nodded her head. She kept her upper body completely covered by a bright red hoodie, her light green hair poking out from behind a clean white mask with black eye holes and a black mouth hole. She had brown belts around her waist, chest, and to hold her mask over her face. The only indication of her skin color was her thighs, what wasn't covered by white stockings, was peach-colored. Shygal, and she wasn't one for words. I really enjoyed having that baby with us. The third girl, the most provocative of the foursome and the tallest of them, over 6 feet in height, with her eyes covered by a red cap with white dots and a white rim with false teeth designs on it. She wore a dress that showed most of her breasts that had the same design as her hat but reverse, so it looked like her dress and hat together formed a mouth. She had long fluffy green hair, the largest breasts of the group, easily the size of all of their combined, and was generally the most sexual of them, wearing nothing visible but a hat, dress, and red heels. Piranha plant, and though she looked human she was indeed a plant, but by the same magic that transformed her friends, she too had suffered the same Kamek curse and attained a human form by eating a cursed mushroom. Too much I would say. The final of the foursome, the shortest girl, well Piranha plant was over 6 feet tall, 6'5" in height with her heels on, she was easily a head shorter than even Koopa or Shygal, who were about the same height. She was only about 4'8" in height, with more pale skin and a rounded face. Like all of them, she kept her eyes covered by her white bangs. Her only clothes, again visible, was a brown hoodie that she used to keep her hands in the pockets of, with 2 black eyebrow-like extensions coming from the hoodie, and brown boots. Goomba, affected by the same cursed mushroom that they each took a bite of, wherever that cursed mushroom might be. While Piranha plant has a seductive Hercules figure, Koopa had an athletic body, Shygal being naturally petite, but still with a great body, she had her own great body, but a tiny bit more normal figure. Shygal pointed her covered hands at her in agreement. That freakishly large Yashi wouldn't have attacked us if somebody Koopa spoke with her hands behind her back, her green eyes peeking out from under her hair, as well as the eyes on top of her hair, glancing towards Piranha plant. Didn't try to do nasty stuff to a baby. Koopa mentioned with a glare at the troublemaker of the group, the one that understood nothing of social norms. Since they had each gained these humans' forms, Piranha plant had the most fun with her new body, experiencing things that she never knew of when she was a mere plant. She now knew what pleasure and pain was, and some of her plant functions did transfer over to her new body. Also, she didn't understand that while you could have sex with men, you were not allowed to do that with kids and toddlers. We didn't get hurt too bad, and it was kind of fun playing with a baby for a while. Goomba did relent a little on how their day had gone, though it wasn't exactly a great day. They got to pretend to be mothers for a day, while running away from a very paternal dinosaur that wanted to protect said baby. They each sighed, though Shygal's sigh was completely unheard by anyone. She minded the flapping of wings. Good idea, I'm sure if we ask the stork, he can bring us a baby of our very own. With my Goomba's sensible attitude, my natural maternal instincts, Shygal, and Piranha plant's nutrient-filled breasts, Koopa had trouble finding where Shygal and Piranha plant would fit into the dynamic, considering one pointed a gun at the baby today. And the other tried to have sex with a baby, mostly out of her own ignorance that you weren't allowed to do that. I'm sure we can add up to one decent parent. Koopa didn't know how badly to over or underestimate their parenting skills. Shygal crossed her arms in annoyance. The baby was crying and attracting a mutant Yashi to them, she had been scared and unsure of what to do. Pulling a gun on the baby had been her go-to option, though Piranha plant did drop kick her because of her actions. Despite her actions, Piranha plant did know not to kill or hurt children. I mean, storks only deliver babies to families who apply for them, I'm pretty sure that we don't fit that category. Goomba was the one who reminded everyone that they weren't actually a family and they had no real home. They weren't even rich, like King Toadstool, who was awaiting his own baby that he applied with the stork for. In the sky. Gotta get this baby to Toad Town, King Toadstool is waiting for this baby. A large white bird with a white cloth pakage hanging from its mouth flew through the sky without a worry. A large stork, flying in the opposite direction, nodded its own head towards it. The two storks gave each other knowing looks and saw that the second stork was carrying a larger pakage that had spikes going through the back of the cloth. Mushroom Kingdom, how about you? Koopa Kingdom, delivering royalty same? Yep, careful, that nasty Kamek has been using his magic to mess with mushrooms. You don't want to go eating any of the super mushrooms, he supercharged them. Anything that eats them takes female human form. But that, their quick conversation, muttered out the side of their mouths, was over as they stopped flying together and started to go back towards their destinations. They were both startled when they heard a loud female scream, both of them dropping the babies they were carrying. The magic sacks that were being used would protect the babies from any damage via the fall, but dropping babies was a pretty bad thing to put on their records. We finished out deliveries, right? Yep, perfectly safe and sound. Back on the ground. It's a kid, a cute cuddly little kid, baby fat. He has baby fat on his little cheeks. Koopa gushed when she saw a kid that was laying in a bush, curled up into a ball. While they were walking, they had stumbled across a young boy in an orange suit that was putting a toddler down into the bush. Blonde hair, peach skin, and 3 whisker marks on each cheek. He couldn't be older than maybe 3 years old, and he was sleeping soundly. Shygal turned her head and watched as the white-haired boy that also had 3 whisker marks on each cheek dropped a note behind as he created a portal and walked through it. She turned her head back to everyone and pointed urgently to the portal, but nobody was paying attention to her. This one isn't a baby, can I? 3 years old is still too young. Koopa smacked Piranha Plant on the head the second she looked like she was going to take her thong out from under her dress. She saw a male and she went for it way too quickly. Anyway, look at this point. Hello, my name is Naruto, I'm unloved and have no family. This is so bad, no family, please raise me with love and care. Koopa finished reading the note and looked down at the sleeping child. This child had no family. Goomba blinked when she saw something golden fall out of the sky through the trees and landed right smack dab on Naruto's head. She gasped when she saw the heavens themselves grant this boy a crown. The crown had landed so perfectly on his head that there was no way this was just random luck. Nobody but a nearby Yashi noticed a little baby girl in pink hanging safely from a tree branch by a white cloth, wiggling around. This child has a crown. I think this might be blonde hair, blue eyes, peach. Goomba pointed at the baby's peach-like skin complexion. Like skin and a crown. I think this baby is Prince of the Mushroom Kingdom. Goomba actually took her hands out of her hoodie pockets to point at the baby. Must be, there is no way a crown could fall out of the sky and land on a kid's head by luck. It would be a massive misunderstanding on like a cosmic scale. There was no way, it would be impossible for mere luck to allow a crown to fall from the sky and land on a person's head without hurting them. This had to be a sign from a higher power that this boy was meant to be the ruler of the Mushroom Kingdom. Meaning they knew they should deliver this boy to King Toadstool, and the king was currently without a wife. Surely he would allow the 4 of them to stay and help raise this child they so painstakingly brought to him. They all had the same idea, within moments of each other, realizing this was the way they could get a makeshift son. In another part of the forest. Better check to make sure that nobody is eating my secret mushrooms. Who knew that if you magically enhanced a super mushroom, you could give it the family to turn anything into females, not just toadettes. Kamek flew on his broom towards the forest and down a hill that had some broken tree branches and some other damages. Super crowns were super rare, he only had a few of them, and usually you didn't eat them, you wore them. He had to finish his research before the next ruler of the Koopa Kingdom was delivered to them. Why was the ground damaged like that, actually? Flying down into his secret spot, he saw that the damage got worse and worse. The damage led right into his secret batch of super mushrooms, which made him pale when he saw a white cloth. Flying into his hidden spot, he saw blonde hair and blue eyes looking at him, as well as super sharp teeth and a green turtle shell with spikes coming from it, not to mention 2 horns sticking out of a baby girl's head as she went to town on all of his super shrooms. Lord Bosee Kamek knew the name of the child to be delivered was Boser, but that was before this unfortunate accident happened. Boset, young lady Boset, allow me to transport you home. Kamek adjusted quickly, knowing that he was going to be filing a complaint with the storks because of this. The last name on his brain had been Toadette, so he naturally just combined the 2 names together. In the forest, another location. Yashi. The normal Yashi jumped into a tree and blinked when it saw a baby girl clapping her hands. He had heard from another Yashi and some babies were being dropped by the storks in the area and they were supposed to be taken to the plumber's place. Seeing as this was a baby, it would only make sense for this baby to be one of the plumber babies that were supposed to be delivered. Well, better take this baby to its new home then. March my Koopas, march as we take the Mushroom Kingdom. The Koopa Kingdom will reign supreme. Bosette let loose a loud shout as she stood inside of her Koopa clown car, a flying face with her standing where the top of the head would be. Her bright blue eyes burned with a flaming passion, and she kept her hair in a ponytail. She had spiked chokers around her wrists, biceps, and neck, a black dress covering parts of her body, and a golden crown on her head, with a Bowser symbol that had been on her child blanket. She laughed as she watched her Koopas and Goombas bullying the Toads in Toad Town, as she herself flew straight towards the castle. She could see it. She could see the stained glass, very stylish, portrait of Prince Naruto on the front of the castle, meaning that she was very close indeed. Her sharp teeth formed a giant grin as she raced forward. If she took out the prince, the technical ruler of the Mushroom Kingdom, seeing as King Toadstool didn't do anything, then the nation would collapse, perfect for her Koopa Kingdom to take over in the chaos. Brhahahaha. She laughed loudly as she circled around the castle, breathing fire in large enough amounts that she was sure to shine a bright light into every window. Nobody was going to be sleeping well tonight. Wakey wakey princey, time for you to meet you fate. She circled around the entire castle until she saw the open window leading to a balcony. Jumping out of her Koopa clown car, she landed on the balcony and walked forward with power to each step. She blinked with some surprise when she saw the room was empty. I'm sorry, who are you? Bosette shouted when she looked to her right and realized she was wrong, the room did have an occupant in it. She looked in surprise before her jaw dropped when the moonlight illuminated the prince that she had been seeking. Here. He was wearing his pajamas, a simple shirt, shorts, and a fox-eared cloak on. Her breath hitched in her chest when she saw his curious, surprised eyes on her, a wild mess of blonde hair underneath the hood. He seemed too small to her, he couldn't stand more than 5'11" in height and be a young adult in age like her. She towered over him, but despite the fact that she stood at 9'3" in height easily, she just didn't know how to proceed to this. Instantly, looking into his face, the urge to fight this man was instantly wiped out of her mind. Wondering who you are. That symbol you're Bosette, from the Koopa Kingdom. You know, you should have told me you were coming if you wanted a diplomatic meeting. Do you mind turning around for a minute or two? I'm not dressed properly. Naruto spoke to her as he looked into her eyes. He wanted to make sure that they had proper impressions of each other. This was his first time meeting the Koopa Queen, who had apparently been amassing a large fleet. Bosette crossed her arms, but turned around, since she was still thinking in her head about what to do now. She couldn't hurt this guy, she wanted him. Not dead, she just wanted him as hers. Those blue eyes, that blonde hair, the purity she could see deep inside of him. Soft-looking skin, and those whisker marks just gave him the perfect definition to his face. She wanted him, and just like how she wanted the Mushroom Kingdom for herself, she wanted this man for herself as well. A wide smile came over her face as she suddenly realized what she was going to do. Okay, you can turn around now. Naruto said, now dressed properly. Orange. He was wearing a slim orange suit with a black shirt underneath it, there was a pink crown symbol on the white tie that he was wearing. A tie that matched the small crown that he wore on top of his head, which seemed to stay there as if by magic. Bosette appraised his looks in his proper attire before she nodded her head and she picked him up before throwing him over her shoulder. Well, what are you doing? Come on, you're coming with me to my castle. Bosette shouted as she jumped out of the window as the door to his room opened. She grinned as she saw Shygal, one of the 4 mother figures that were known throughout the Mushroom Kingdom as one of the people who raised the prince. Listen up and listen well, let the entire Mushroom Kingdom know that Prince Naruto now belongs to me. Bosette jumped into her Koopa clown car. Boom. The bullet bounced off of the shell she wore on her back and saw Shygal had a gun pointed at her, her arms visibly shaking in anger. Bosette just grinned and started to fly off back towards the Koopa Kingdom. Not caring if she was being fired at in the slightest. The next morning. The prince, my son has been kidnapped by Bosette, why would she do something like this? The prince has been kidnapped. King Toadstool and Toadsworth a Toad were both in an uproar as the front doors of the castle were opened up. 3 people watched in with a set of tools in their hands, though they weren't really sure what was going on. We're here to fix a pipe. The shortest member of them spoke as he looked around, seeing the Toads in an uproar. He wore a red shirt, blue overalls, and a red hat with an M on it. He had the most muscle on him for his short size and a very large mustache nose combo. They were all dressed the same, but with different colors. Red, green, and pink, with M, L, and P on their hats. The Mario siblings. The shortest was the eldest sibling Mario, who wore red. The skinny green man was Luigi Mario, Mario as a last name, and the tallest of them at over 6 feet tall was Peach Mario. Several days previously, they had been asked to come to the castle as quickly as they could to fix a broken warp pipe that went to the Bean Kingdom. Warp pipes were a real challenge to fix though, so it wasn't something they could just easily do without a lot of tools. My son, the prince, has been kidnapped. King Toadstool cried out again before he noticed the 3 of them. Plumbers, on orders of the king, I want you to go and bring my son back from Boset. King Toadstool pointed at them. He did realize they were plumbers, right? Obibo Boset. Luigi murmured with his body shaking with fear, unable to say it without a stutter. Okie dokie then, Mario, Luigi, you two get started on that warp pipe. I'll be back before you know it. Peach didn't have much other option but to accept the job she was being given. As a Mushroom Kingdom citizen, she was honor-bound to do whatever it took to protect the royal line. She took her hat off, bowed to the king, before she made her back out the front door. I can't stand bullies, better really hurry up and put the hurt on Boset for this. But Naruto 3 days later. This puny thing is the cake you'll be making for my wedding. Boset wasn't pleased when she saw a 6-foot-tall cake standing in front of her, white frosting, with green pipes all over it. She had an annoyed look on her face as she saw her Koopa chefs bowing nervously to her. She didn't care how short notice she was making her demands, whatever time she gave them was the amount of time they had to get what she wanted done. 6 feet tall was nothing compared to the amazing feelings that she had inside of her chest, burning for freedom. They tried their best and I'm not marrying you. Naruto pointed out. He was tied up by a sturdy rope and being pulled around behind Boset. Sure you are, you'll learn to love me. Boset commented without pause, fawning over Naruto as she stroked his cheek. Bigger. You will make this cake bigger. Boset roared at her chefs. This was only a model queen Boset, the real cake will be 10 takes the size and filled with chocolate. 100 times the size, this will be the most impressive wedding in the history of the Koopa Kingdom. My love will not be puny, it will be gigantic, large enough that everyone will be able to tell just how large it is with a mere glance. Queen Boset does not do things small. Boset roared with laughter as she covered her mouth with her hand slightly. She wanted the cake to be the second largest thing at the wedding, with the largest thing being her love. Koopas fell in love, and they fell in love hard. This is going to be a lot of trouble. Mom, mother, mommy, and mama are going to be so worried right about now. Naruto thought with a sigh. His parents were going to be so worried if he didn't get home soon, and they would freak out if he married the Koopa Queen. Do you really need all of that cake? A 600-foot-tall cake is really hard to eat. Naruto pointed out, trying to help the poor chefs, save them from trying to make such a monster of a cake. Oh dear prince, this cake will be given to the entire kingdom in order to celebrate their powerful queen's marriage. Such a small cake won't do, I'm getting married after all, I get the most delicious thing of all, the sweet kiss from my peach-skinned prince. Boset picked Naruto up and started to bring him closer towards her. He sucked his lips into his mouth, unwilling to give her the kiss she so wanted. Boset didn't get a kiss. Instead, she had a brown boot implanted into her face as the window was destroyed. She was knocked off of her feet and sent flying into the model cake before hitting the wall behind the cake as well. Naruto started to fall towards the ground before he was caught. Not today, Prince Naruto is going to be returned home. Evil Koopa Queen, come on, and remember, if you ever need a plumber, call the Mario siblings, Mario, Luigi, and Peach, me, will be happy to solve all your plumbing needs. Peach decided to get some advertisement in for the Koopas who were listening in. She could never forget to advertise, since her brothers were better plumbers than she was, she always needed to make sure business was good. Naruto blinked. Peach. Wait, plumber. He was kidnapped by the Koopa Queen and he was saved by a plumber. It was a little tense around the castle for the next few days. To say that security was tighter around him was an understatement. He didn't go anywhere without one of his parents, the female ones, sticking to his side like glue. Even right now, while Naruto was going around Toad Town and inspecting the damage that had been done to the town by Boset's Koopas and Goombas, he had the most sensible member of his mother figures standing next to him with her hands in her hoodie pockets. You're okay, right, mentally? I know kidnapping is a very serious matter. Goomba spoke as she looked at him carefully, trying to see if his cheeks were twitching. She learned that his cheeks were the biggest tell what emotion he was feeling. When he was feeling particularly stressed out, his left cheek would twitch a little bit, small twitches that only a mother would notice from her son. She saw that there were small twitches, so he wasn't unaffected, but he wasn't as stressed out as when King Toadstool had passed on all of the royal responsibilities onto Naruto when the boy was 12 years old. Naruto was staring down at the toads who were rebuilding everything that was damaged, though all of them were turned to smile and wave at him, and he would smile and wave back at them. I'll be fine, a little shaken still, but I promise, I'm fine. Naruto told her with an honest tone. He wouldn't say the event hadn't been weird and unpleasant, but at the same time, he hadn't been badly treated by Boset either. She had made sure that he was well fed, had a comfortable place to sleep, though her constantly keeping an eye on him to prevent him from attempting escape had racked at his nerves. Goomba gave him a look. Don't push yourself, you can take a day off. I have to at least make sure my people are okay. I know the casualty count was 0, but we need to make sure that nobody was seriously injured. Naruto's words warmed the hearts of the surrounding toads who heard him. The amount of care he showed for his kingdom and those who lived in it was their favorite quality about the prince. Naruto felt a hand on top of his head and looked to see Goomba girl petting him. By instinct, he actually blushed and looked away. "Please not in public, mom," Naruto whispered to her. She just smiled and took her hand away. "Red pipe to red pipe Luigi, not red to yellow, oh, Prince Naruto." The large amount of water had blasted a familiar green plumber out of a house and into the street, with a familiar red plumber following behind him with a concerned look. The elder brother helped his younger brother up to his feet just in time to see as their prince arrived and saw their mistake. Naruto was just surprised to see them helping Toad Town get restored back to its prime state. Mario and Luigi both gave a bow to Naruto, who blinked a little before he responded with a gentle bow of his own. "No, please, no need to be so formal with me. Your sister saved me, the Mushroom Kingdom owes your family a department of gratitude. Mario, Luigi Mario, I thank the Mario family from the bottom of my heart." The sight of a prince bowing to a pair of plumbers must have looked rather odd, but Naruto wasn't above bowing to those who held a lower social status to him. If not for the Mario siblings, the pipes of the castle would be busted and he would be married to Bosette right now. He was surprised when he saw the brothers huddle up together and seriously start to speak to each other. Wow, plumbers were quite odd, most people didn't actually ask for anything, from what he heard from Princess Daisy. Princess Daisy, now there was an issue he didn't like dealing with. Just thinking about her makes me cringe. Naruto thought with a groan, why was that girl so just the way that she was and generally difficult to deal with? "You've decided?" Naruto asked when he saw the brothers had nodded their heads. Coins, political positions in the kingdoms, new jobs that would better suit their desires, he could grant them nearly anything within his power to give. "We want a cake, you see, we don't often get to eat it and rumors say that the castle has an amazing cake recipe." Luigi came forward nervously and asked, Mario just looked like he was dreaming about the cake already. "Mario, help, I'm blarg never mind, fixed it, we are going to get mouthwash later though." So Peach was in the house, still doing her job it would seem, even after saving him, it warmed his heart to see such a hard-working person. "I see no reason why I can't grant that. I'll go back to the castle right now and get started on baking. Those rumors are 100% correct, my family has a secret recipe we've been passing down for generations. I've always wanted to make the cake." Naruto smiled wide, seeing this was something that he not only had no problems giving them, but he would enjoy inviting them to the castle when the cake was done. He would send them a letter for sure, making sure that the Mario family would get their cake. Goomba girl just smiled proudly, since her son never got to see many other humans in his life. He was usually surrounded by toads and his family, so she was just happy to see him interacting with others for real. Toads were loyal, if kind of stupid, subjects that would do whatever he said, that wasn't real interaction. Mario had hearts in his eyes. He could taste that cake already. "Mario, Luigi, is it red to red and green to green or red to red and green to yellow here?" Peach asked from inside of the house and the brothers were snapped from their delusions with panicked looks. Naruto blinked before he saw two plumbers running towards him with freaked out faces. The next few seconds were a first for Naruto because he was tackled to the ground by an overweight and lanky pair of plumbers. The two covered his body completely, just in time too, because the house that Peach's voice had come out of exploded. Exploded, yes, exploded. Peach was sent flying out of the house with a rocketing force, landing face down on the ground before skidding across the street, covered in ash with a great grin on his face. Green to yellow it was. "What are you guys even doing out, Prince Naruto?" Peach was standing upright again and using her sleeves to wipe away the soot from her face. She tried to make herself as clean, or at least presentable, as possible, now that she realized she had just blown herself up in front of royalty. Mario and Luigi were both getting off of Naruto and helping him stand to his feet. He fixed his crown and dusted off the back of his suit before he cleared his throat, red cheeks, since he had just been tackled to the ground like that. "Let's go Peach, Prince Naruto is going to be baking a cake for us. Please, put out the fires you started, that is the biggest concern right now, not looking good." Naruto looked at the flaming remains of the building. Goomba girl had already run off to go get help for that, leaving him with the plumber siblings and the rather useless toads. He could already see all of the closest toads were going into their own homes and bring out buckets of water to help out. Seeing the fire was mostly taken care of, Naruto decided that he would make his exit. Overall repairs were going very well. Other than this minor setback, and honestly it would be fixed in no time, the toads were excellent when it came to repairing and building stuff. Say what you want about their competency as warriors, but they were excellent construction workers. At the castle, later that day. "So, what is he doing exactly?" Piranha Plant didn't often see Naruto in the kitchen, actually baking. She knew that he wasn't exactly the very best at cooking, but his father had forced him to learn baking young, so Naruto usually avoided actually cooking. It was one of the few things King Toadstool insisted on Naruto learning, though the man was pretty incompetent overall. Baking a cake, he finished the cake, he's just making the frosting right now. Koopa smiled as she stood at the side and watched Naruto work. She was happy Naruto was doing this for the one that rescued him and her family. Orange slices as decoration, and maybe a combination of cherry and strawberry to line the edges. Chocolate though, the cake has to be chocolate. Naruto thought about how he was going to decorate the cake, grin on his face the entire time as he stirred the chocolate frosting to the right consistency. Bing. Ah, the cake is done, better take it out. With that, Naruto ran across the room and opened up the oven, pulling the impressive cake out. He took a sniff of its aroma before he smiled down at the pinkness of it. Strawberry cake with chocolate frosting and fruit toppings. I should bake more often. Oh, this cake would be better if I frosted after I finish it. Naruto had the idea that a cooled cake would be better after a hard day's work for the Mario siblings. It would combo well with the vanilla ice cream that he had. Crash. I'm back and I'm here for you, Prince Naruto. Bosette crashed through the window. Koopa and Piranha Plant jumped into action right away. Wait. Stop, I'm baking a cake. Wait 10 minutes before you do anything. I don't like leaving things unfinished, it will really bother me. Naruto shouted when Bosette reached for him and both she and his mother stopped in their tracks. You, start chopping these fruits. The oranges need to be thin slices, cut the strawberries in half. Naruto walked towards Bosette and handed her a knife before he went over towards Koopa and Piranha Plant. Bosette didn't know what she was supposed to do with this. You heard me, I said start chopping. Naruto grabbed her hand and started to guide her into chopping the fruits the way he wanted them chopped. With a huff, he walked towards the cake and grabbed the frosting bowl. For future reference, don't kidnap me when I'm in the kitchen, it's really rude, way more rude than just kidnapping. I said start chopping, you know. Naruto gestured to her idle hands and she renewed her efforts with a love-struck look on her face. She didn't know the prince had this side to him. She's going to kidnap you. Koopa pointed out to him. Yeah, but not until I finish this cake, mama. Naruto told Koopa as he started to frost the cake. Anyway, you two don't start a fight, you're not fighters. You two should just take this letter and make sure it gets where it is going, I insist. Naruto gave Koopa and Piranha Plant a letter. It was addressed to Peach and when they saw that, they got the message on what they were supposed to do. They nodded and left the room. Baking with my beloved prince, it's just like we're newlyweds. We're not getting married, I just refuse to leave anything I start unfinished. I said I was going to bake a cake, so I'll bake a cake. Naruto grabbed the fruits that she cut up and started to place them in decorative spots all over the cake. It only took moments, but when he was done, he lifted the cake and moved it towards the fridge with a nod. Now, you may kidnap me. Naruto raised his arms up and she grabbed him by the waist and threw him over her shoulder. She jumped out of the window and into her Koopa clown car before the two of them started to fly away. Bosette knew she was kidnapping him, but for some reason, she couldn't help but think that he was the one who was in charge. A different castle. Ha. That Peach will never find the right castle in time. Ha. Bosette let out a roaring laugh as she stepped on the edge of the window, looking out into the lava-covered rivers and bone-dry trees of her kingdom. She had made the perfect plan, she had made stops at 7 different castles with her kidnapped prince and left behind false copies of herself at each castle to make each one look like the real one. She even left behind a captured toad at each castle just to mock Peach further by having them tell her that all her hard work in conquering that castle would come down to nothing. She felt Naruto's deadpan stare at the back of her head. She's passionate, I'll give her that. Naruto thought as she once more broke out into evil laughter. He just sighed to himself and looked out the window. Despite how hot it was outside, the inside of the castle was rather cool thanks to the open windows and the draft. Not to mention, since the sun never really shined in the Koopa Kingdom, it was the lava that made everything kind of normal heat-wise, otherwise it would be very cold without the lava. Just like how most of the year, in the Mushroom Kingdom, it usually had the feelings of spring during spring, fall, and even most of the winter kind of felt like spring. It was only summer that had an issue with sometimes getting hotter than normal. This is a lot of trouble for one person. Naruto mentioned to Bosette. He didn't forget the 600-foot-tall cake she tried to have made last time. Now she was having duplicates of herself stay at 7 other castles just for a decoy. You're more than worth it, Prince Naruto, the Koopa Queen will go big or go home. My love for you will not be belittled by me not giving this my full effort. Bosette shouted out with glee before giving another evil laugh. With that said, she stepped down from the window and walked over to the table, sitting down next to Naruto, despite it being a massive table with lots of room. But a snap of her fingers, 5 Goombas came into the room with plates of food balanced on their heads, with the majority of the food being meat dished in some way, shape, or form, and no veggies in the slightest. You must be hungry, let's eat, tomorrow we have a long day of wedding planning ahead of us. I'm thinking red and black themed, I'm always wearing a dress, so I'll switch to a white tuxedo. I'll have Kamek go and search for the finest materials to make the outfits from. Bosset waved a hand, as if gesturing out into the distance. Naruto raised an eyebrow when 4 of the plates were placed in front of Bosset, though considering she was over 9 feet tall, she must have a big enough stomach to eat all of that, and then some. I have no intentions of marrying you, but I will admit, I respect that you're so passionate the toads that you captured, they won't be harmed. Naruto asked Bosset with a concerned tone. This time he wasn't the only one captured, she had taken 7 of his toads and forced them into castles as well. He was really worried about the safety of those little ones, and he didn't believe Bosset would show them the same levels of good treatment as she extended to him. You learn to love me, love is effort after all. Your toads will be given decent treatment, I won't treat them badly, but neither will my treatment of them be pleasant either. Bosset pursued her lips tightly when she saw that his concern was geared mostly towards the citizens of his kingdom. She had figured this much, so she made sure that the toads would be treated with some respect. So, tell me about the one I love. She spoke as she tossed an entire steak into her mouth and started to chew it. Naruto would have been disgusted if it weren't for the fact that she had enough class to chew with her mouth closed and the steak was a cooked steak and not raw. Naruto thought it over for a few moments. Naruto picked up a Goomba before he sat it down in his lap and smiled at it, rubbing the top of its head to the Goomba's pleasure. It nuzzled up against his stomach when it was treated by the warm-hearted prince, lavishing in his attention. After showing it affection, Naruto sat it back down on the ground and pushed it gently to get it walking away. Bosset frowned when she saw the Goomba had a happy smile across its face that she didn't know it was capable of. She only knew the Goombas to frown, smiles just didn't seem to fit right on their faces. You won't stop until I say something. Naruto looked at her. Not a chance. Well, I have 4 mothers, and since I was old enough to understand what it meant to be a prince, my father decided to place all the responsibility of running a kingdom on my shoulders. Which I'm not mad at, he was very bad at running a kingdom. It makes me happy when I see how much my kingdom depends on me, like I'm never really alone. Naruto spoke of the less intimate details of his life, though he slipped something in there he hadn't been thinking about. His mother's situation was public knowledge, though nobody judged him for who raised him. Queen Toadstool died long ago, and since then King Toadstool's mental health had been quickly deteriorating to the state that he was now in. He fell in love with her, and when she died, she took a large chunk of him with her, it sort of drove him crazy in a way that not even having a child to raise fixed. I was mostly raised by my mothers, and though my father is important to me, I'm not terribly close to him. You? Naruto asked Bosset, and she shrugged. I'm the Koopa Queen, I was looked after by my royal advisor Kamek, and once I could speak properly, I was given my kingdom to rule, been ruling it ever since. No parents that I know of. Bosset put her feet on the table, easily finished with her meal in the mere moments that she had been listening to Naruto speak. Her life had been pretty simple. If she wanted something, she went after it and took it for herself, that had been the case all her life. She lived a very simple and easy to appreciate life because of it, the only issues were when she was learning magic from Kamek for stuff like increasing her size, bringing her own bones to life, and if she ever became Bone Bosset, regenerating her flesh so that she was back to normal. She knew more magic, but she preferred brute strength to magic most of the time. That explains so much. Naruto felt a little bad for Bosset in that case. Rules and lectures from parents were no fun, and neither was discipline, but it was an important part of a child's development. He had been a very energetic child, and at first he had refused to even accept his family as his family. Bosset snapped her fingers to have her plates taken away as Koopas came into the room in order to clean up. Your mothers were those strange forms, correct? Bosset had never seen a Goomba in that form, not had she seen Koopas, shy guys, and piranha plants take those forms either. She liked to think since her people were mostly those species that she knew what they were supposed to look like. Naruto nodded. They told me that they used to look normal before they ate cursed mushrooms that had a powerful magic on them. It turned them into what they are now, and because they've been in those forms for so long, they can never regain their true forms again. Naruto knew enough about their situations, but they didn't want to go back either. They enjoyed their female bodies, piranha plant mostly, and they liked the fact that they were so easy to tell apart from their species. Seriously, piranha plant could enjoy her body and the bodies of others a little less than what she did, and he wouldn't complain about it. No, seriously, even he knew how active she was. I see. So what do you do for fun in the Mushroom Kingdom? Bosset didn't know a lot about the culture where he was fun. Do different kingdoms. Well, we have parties, I'm in the middle of planning go-karting, tennis, golf, soccer, basketball, quite a few things I'm really partial to the games we. Go-karting. That sounds fun. Well, right now I'm setting aside kingdom funding to make tracks, since sports are really popular. My toads are all hard workers, I feel like they could benefit from a more varied entertainment. Naruto saw that Boset looked really interested in this idea. He mentally chalked it up to it being a good idea, so when he got back to the kingdom, he was going to have to make sure he got things rolling there. The Mushroom Kingdom was well known for its celebration of sports and extra activities, and their parties had some of the best party games out there. Though, playing the games with his mothers and the Toads didn't make for much competition, since his mothers didn't try too hard and Toads seemed honor-bound to let him win. The door was kicked open. Queen Boset, Peach is at the front of the castle and just broke in through the front door. -5 minutes later. Well, it looks like a peach has shown itself, ripe for the squishing. Boset crossed her arms over her large breasts as she looked down at Peach, who had her overalls in a worn condition, showing she had a very rough time getting to the castle. Her hat had gone from pink to white and her overalls were no longer blue, but instead they were red. A strange color change, but not one that Boset really cared about. The two of them were standing on a wooden bridge, hovering over a pool of lava, with a tied-up Naruto on the other side of the bridge. 8 castles it took to find Prince Naruto, hand him over, and nobody gets hurt. Peach summoned a fireball in the palm of her hand, staring down at Boset with a twitching eye. Boset responded with a flame blast, saying no words as she attempted to end Peach's life. Peach ran towards it fearlessly and ducked underneath it. The battle was fast-paced, Peach was forced to dodge 3 fire blasts before she got close enough to Boset and threw a fireball into her face. When Boset recoiled, she jumped over her head and hovered in the air for a couple of moments, landing on the other side of Boset. Grabbing an axe that was on the other side of the bridge, Boset had enough time to shake herself. When she turned around, Peach was already swinging the axe down, chopping the bridge up and sending Boset down into the lava below. This hurts. A lot. Next time, Peach, next time I'll get the prince. Next time, I'll stop you again. This is going to be my life now, isn't it? Naruto thought to himself with a sigh as he was lifted up bridal style by Peach. He would be sure to save a slice of cake for Boset for next time. Ooh yes. Nothing was more relaxing than a piping hot bath, absolutely nothing, at least after a hard, stressful day at least. The last 2 months had been getting pretty stressful, considering one half of the time he was working and the other half he was being kidnapped. He hadn't had a chance to unwind, just take it easy, as was what he used to do on Saturday when he told everyone that no visitors were allowed to come to the castle. It was the one day of the week that nobody ever bothered him with expenses this or kingdom trade agreements that. Don't get him wrong, he loved his kingdom and he worked himself to the bone for it with a smile on his face, but sometimes a man just needed to take a break from it all. The nice orange-scented bubble bath was just the cure. A nice long, heated, nice-smelling bath with a good book in his hands as well. Currently, he was reading a book on how to properly grow watermelons, among the different types of fruit from the melon family in general. He wanted to try growing bean fruit, but outside of the climate of the bean kingdom, it was just too hard for them to properly grow. He had never tasted one, but the Yashi of the bean kingdom seemed to absolutely adore them, enough to lay glowing eggs that shine very brightly. Melons were good though, and with the heat of summer coming up, it was just a good idea too. Naruto. Beep. Naruto sank into the water, holding his book far above it when an unexpected intruder came calling. His eyes peeked above the bubbles and he relaxed when it saw that it was Piranha Plant with a letter between her tits. That was where she carried anything that her usually pretty clumsy hands would normally be used to carry, but cleavage worked for her. Oh, mommy, I'm a little, can't wait 2 hours. Naruto asked with a regretful tone, more comfortable. Nobody aside from his mothers had ever seen him naked before, not even his father, to his memory at least, had seen him nude, and he usually got a little, well, there was that one person who had seen him naked, but he repressed those memories whenever possible. Seeing Piranha Plant did calm him down though enough to sit up normally and take the letter from her cleavage. It's royal business, oh no. Fine, I'll read this. Later. Ow, flesh regeneration always leaves me so sensitive. Boset complained as she poked her skin and winced at just how new it felt. This was the second time this week that she had been forced to magically grow her flesh back from being nothing but bones. Next time, she would remember to make sure there was no axe on that bridge. Also, she was going to throw Peach in the lava and see how she felt about getting turned into Bone Peach or Dead Peach, whichever one happened first. Kamek, start the plans for kidnapping Prince Naruto, let's get it done right this time, you have 2 days to come up with a brilliant plan. Boset waved her hand at Kamek floating on his broom next to her throne. She had failed quite a number of times, but this time she had gotten very close. She could tell by the way that she was just sure she had been closer this time than the last few times she failed horribly. Well, love wasn't easy. I'll do my best to not disappoint you, Queen Bose. Oh no, I've been kidnapped by Bosette again. Naruto said as he walked in through the front door. Naruto had rope in his hands, and as he was walking towards them he was wrapping it around himself. Naruto was completely unaccompanied at the moment, which was odd as well. I bring you my plan. Kamek didn't know what was going on, but he was happy that the work seemed to already be done for him. Now he could go and experiment with some of the fire flowers that he had managed to find in the Mushroom Kingdom on his last visit there. Bosette just clapped her hands together, looking impressed with Kamek, since she didn't expect to see such fast results this time. She just assigned him the job, and he already got it done. No wonder he was without a doubt one of her best minions, her most trusted advisor, and longtime commander of her forces of no good. Naruto walked up to Bosette, jumped so that he was sitting on her lap. Mind tying my hands up, can't do that myself. Naruto told her with a strange tone. Never mind, Kamek, you do it since your hands are smaller, more suited for this kind of stuff. Naruto gestured to his untied hands and motioned for Kamek to do it. Do it. Naruto's tone held no room for argument, so Kamek rushed to get it done. Once the rope was secured and Naruto was unable to move his hands, he nodded with satisfaction. Okay Kamek, for this, I won't ask about the fire flowers that you have, but don't steal from my kingdom again. Now, you need to increase security, make sure that Peach has a hard time getting to this tower before say 6 PM no, 10 PM just to be sure. Naruto gave out his orders for Kamek. Bosette had no earthly idea what was happening, even when Kamek looked at her, she just nodded her head to confirm him to do it, even if she was just as confused as he was. She had figured at this point none of this was Kamek's plan, but still, it was not something she expected today. Very well, I'll do that. Good, you're kidnapping yourself and making it harder for Peach to save you. This isn't like you. I don't know what you're talking about, I was captured by your Goombas, they are a very tricky bunch, you have good troops or your command. I was defenseless to their intimidating stares and fainted. By the time I woke up they gave me this rope and told me to present myself to you. Out of sheer fear, I obeyed their commands. Naruto spoke such an untruth that even Bosette was able to pick up on it without any help. She had seen him hug a Goomba, no way would he be intimidated by them, nothing was intimidated by Goombas other than Toads to be fair. He spoke so robotically that this was clearly a rehearsed story. She gestured for him to continue. He didn't. Why did you kidnap yourself? Kidnap myself. I'm shocked, I'm just a meek prince, I'm not capable of such actions as falsifying my own kidnapping. I'm not suited towards such deception, surely, don't you have faith in your own troops? After all, they have such a grand and beautiful queen, no doubt they want to impress her. Naruto's tongue might as well be made of silver because his words made Bosette swoon. Her cheeks became red and she couldn't look him straight in the face, despite the lack of romantic light in which they were spoken. She had to slap her own cheeks, ow, her skin was still sensitive. Something was wrong. Last time I kidnapped you, you told me not to kidnap you today because you were going to have a relaxing day to yourself. Well, your superb minions went above and beyond their line of duty. Praise them, because I was overwhelmed by their skill and teamwork. I've been kidnapped quite a bit by you and your minions, surely, you aren't complaining that I'm here right now. Naruto asked her with a raised eyebrow, glancing at her with the first bit of emotion she had seen on his face after kidnapping himself. She didn't know this, but Naruto had made sure that his family knew that he wasn't really kidnapped and that they weren't supposed to send the Mario siblings to rescue him until around 5 or so to make sure that enough time was wasted. Bosette's eyes widened. No, as always, I'm extremely happy to see you. You here on my lap is the best part of my day, even my highly sensitive regrown flesh is nothing but a smile trifle when compared to the joy feeling your body on my own. I'm just know my minions are incompetent. Bosette loved this, but her suspicions were real, since she had seen how horrible her Goombas were at doing their jobs. She was actually thinking about kicking them out of her army until they could get their act together and become real threats. Just to prove her own point, she wrapped her arms around Naruto and pulled him close, expecting some kind of resistance, but surprisingly meeting none. Weird, he didn't even turn his face away from hers, he just had his eyes closed and seemed to be weighing something on his mind. Naruto nodded his head. I feel bad about this, but this is still better than the alternative. Naruto thought to himself with another nod. Anything was better than meeting with Princess Daisy on one of his relaxing Saturdays, he would put up with kidnapping if it meant that he wouldn't have to see her this one day of the week. Bosette, deciding just to go with it, stood up from her throne with Naruto now thrown over her shoulder. Well then. Why don't we? You have a kitchen, as a show my utter defeat, I'll bake a cake for you. Bosette's day just got even better. Much later. Ooh. Boset's day was still great, the cake had been delicious, but because of the cake she had been feeling a little sluggish when Peach finally showed up and stomped on top of her head. Groaning and rubbing her pained skull, she saw Naruto walking towards her with his hands closed around something. He leaned down to her level, since she was laying flat on the ground. Didn't he get taken back by Peach already? Naruto smiled at her. Here you go, take this as my thanks for helping me avoid something really bad. Naruto opened the palm of her hand before he placed some painkillers there. Leaning down further, Naruto placed a gentle kiss on her cheek before standing up and going to walk towards the exit of the castle where Peach was waiting to carry him away, back to the Mushroom Kingdom. All this confusion and pain was worth it. Boset swallowed the painkillers and just smiled with a dreamy expression. This was a strange day for her to be sure, and she still didn't know what Naruto had been trying to avoid today, but it didn't matter. He came to her castle of his own free will, sat in her lap and let her hug him, baked a cake for her, and he even gave her a kiss on the cheek. Frankly, it didn't matter what his reason was, because all of it was worth the trouble she went through at the end there. She sighed and propped herself up on her elbows, because in the end, she still felt like she had won. Naruto was avoiding something, and instead of going somewhere else, he came to her. That meant that Naruto did not view her as the worst thing in his eyes. If she was not something he hated, then she could work from there and turn whatever he felt towards her into love. She had to be curious though. This was the first time that she had seen Naruto purposely avoid something. So even Prince Naruto had things that he didn't like to do. Royal Family Day. No Boset kidnappings allowed. No Mario siblings allowed. No Princess Daisy allowed. This is nice, it's been forever since we did this together. Koopa spoke as she just soaked in the mud with her favorite and only son. This was the one day of the entire year that nothing was allowed in the castle, and it was a holiday that had been announced by Naruto 2 years previously. Celebrated all over the kingdom, it was a day for families to be together and do the things they love to do. Bathing in mud from the breasts down was the best way to start a day, even more so this mud that was created using dirt from the Koopa Kingdom and hot springs water from Isle Delfino, imported for multiple reasons to be fair, but this was the best one. A relaxing day was what everyone needed. Feels odd but pleasant. Naruto mentioned as he leaned into the bubbling mud because it wasn't just special mud, it was being constantly heated. Unlike Koopa, he had chosen to mostly submerge himself down to the neck. Sorry for worrying you all the time with those kidnappings. Naruto apologized to her. He knew his family always worried about him whenever he was taken by Boset, it was just the way things were. None of them were strong enough to face against her, and he had his own reasons for why he didn't really like using violence to solve any problem. Koopa rubbed the top of his head with a wide smile. She didn't say anything. Ooh, you all started without me, you know just how much I love dipping my roots good mud. Piranha Plant spoke with a smile, walking in absolutely naked other than the hat that never left the top of her head. Her body hadn't really changed over the years, none of their bodies really had since they continued to stay youthful on the outside. Heck, despite the fact that she was a person of her hobbies, her nipples were still a virgin pink, and despite how much use her lower region had seen, it seemed only slightly less tight. She didn't get all the way in the mud, instead, she just dipped her feet in and allowed Naruto's head to rest against the inside of her thigh. Their feet, you've had feet for years now, call them feet. Koopa argued against the way that Piranha Plant just never seemed to stop referring to herself in plant terms. It was really weird, but it was just a small quirk of her personality, easily forgivable to say the least. Also, why are you here? Don't you usually go and do your thing before it's your turn? We all know that I spend the first part of the day with Naruto, then Shygal, then Goomba, then you go last, not first. Koopa had a bigger issue with her being here. Naruto spent the day doing the things they wanted to do, but they each had things that they liked to do that were completely different. She liked relaxing spa days, so Naruto started the day by getting a full treatment with her. Shygal never said what she did. She didn't care about what Goomba did, she was the responsible one, she wasn't going to do anything bad. Funny enough, Piranha Plant's bonding activity with Naruto was, I'm just here for a moment, taking a break. Piranha Plant did have a small air of sweat on her. It's hot outside today, I didn't know you two would be here, I'll just be on my way then. I'm going to take a nap, wake me up when it's my turn. Piranha Plant got her feet out of the mud and started to walk away. She was tired. Don't track Naruto was too late to warn her before she walked into the hallway with mud on her feet still. The toads worked so hard to keep the castle clean, it was a shame to see their hard work get wasted like that. Well, guess the toads need something to do while I'm getting kidnapped. Naruto rubbed the back of his head with a small smile on his face. Koopa looked slightly uncomfortable at the mentioning of kidnapping, but if Naruto wasn't too worried, then she wouldn't make as much of a big deal out of it as she wanted to. She stuck her mud-covered leg out of the mud and used her big toe to tap his forehead. Hey now, no mentioning that she treats you well, right? Koopa asked while trying to make herself seem uncaring. Other than tying me up or treating me like a doll, she treats me well. I actually feel bad for her in a way. Naruto saw Koopa motion for him to continue. She was spoiled as a child, getting whatever she wanted whenever she wanted. She lived a very sheltered life, and the Koopa Kingdom has different standards on child raising than the Mushroom Kingdom. Naruto didn't excuse her actions as right. He just understood them. He understood that she didn't really know the difference, or rather, there was a difference. They had different values of what was right and wrong because of the conditions they were raised in and because of the locations they were brought up in. You've grown up really well. It seems like just yesterday you were this. Koopa brought her hands together and made an embarrassingly small size. Small. With that added, she ducked herself into the mud up to her neck so that just her head was out of the mud. To think, he used to be such a prankster of a child. Shygal. Later. What she liked to do to relax was different. Yeah, I guess this is an odd one. Naruto was with Shygal, the two of them looking at the different types of mushrooms that she had found and collected. She was something of the one that traveled the most on her own. Goomba, normally when she was not with him, just walked around the castle or went and talked to other Goombas. Koopa had the most varied amount of things that she did and she enjoyed trying new things. Piranha Plant, what she did needed no explanation. Shygal was a mystery to everyone except her son, Naruto, who had been raised most of his life around her odd quirks. While she was quick to jump to bad answers to problems, she was the most intelligent, but she lacked an understanding of what it meant to be social. She used her own body to experiment on seeing what different types of mushrooms did. Yes, this is a rare poison mushroom. Though it is poisonous, the poison isn't deadly, instead it acts like a magic that makes the one who eats it small. Naruto knew what this mushroom was, and it was rare, true, but not unheard of. He was surprised she found one. Most people destroyed them or threw them off a cliff when they found them. This must be her first time being the one who found it. She lifted up her mask a little, showing her mouth, and took a bite out of it. She could eat through her mask, but she didn't want to get poison on it. Her body shrank to the point her boobs had shrunk into a flat chest. She lost a foot in height, and overall she became far smaller in general size. Even her clothes changed size to match thanks to the magic. She took out a notepad from her sleeve and a purple crayon before she started to draw a picture of the poison mushroom and gave a description to what it did. She took out a super mushroom and shoved it into her mouth. Like magic, her body grew back to its normal size, and she nodded her head. Oh, that one is a weird mushroom. Not a mushroom that is weird. A weird mushroom has the same effect as a super mushroom, but using it also makes you lose all unneeded weight. Naruto mentioned to her when she asked him why it was weird. In theory, eating a poison mushroom and then a weird mushroom would be a permanent weight loss trick for those who had obesity issues, but it was an untested theory since nobody wanted to become that fat, just on a theory that they could lose all the weight. He didn't know much more about illegal mushroom experimentation since they were tricky items. Naruto was forced to take a smaller, less developed form when she forced part of the poison mushroom in his mouth. Naruto looked at his smaller, possibly 13 or so year old form with some disdain. I hated being this short. Naruto really didn't like his younger years before he was fully grown. He had always been short until he reached 17 and got a growth spurt, and now as an adult he was nearly 6 feet tall, just an inch shy. Shygal offered him the weird shroom. It won't affect me, I'm really athletic, so I don't have a lot of fat on me. Naruto grabbed the super shroom and returned back to his adult form. He was lucky that Piranha Plant wasn't around, or she would have hugged him into her chest before he could resist her. Pouting at me won't change anything. Naruto told her, since despite her face not being visible, her aura showed that she was pouting at him. She shrugged and admitted defeat before she got down on all fours and started to pick through the different mushrooms. Wait, you're showing. Naruto lowered the back of her jacket over her butt, which was showing. It won't do for a toter Goomba to walk by and see her like that. Then again, she might not care. Goomba. Later. I knew this was a bad idea. Yoshis and Goombas had a bad relationship, as in, it was bad for Goombas that tried to be around Yoshis. Yoshis loved eating Koopas and Goombas a lot, though not in a harmful way, just a disgusting way. Currently, Naruto was standing in front of a Goomba, the person-sized egg as it cracked before splitting open. Goomba flopped onto the ground, covered from head to toe in egg fluids. You see, there was a difference between when a Yoshi laid an egg for breeding, when it ate something for nutrients, or when it ate something in order to trap it in an egg. With Naruto standing around, it wasn't going to eat Goomba for nutrients or to try and create a new Yoshi. Goomba always wanted to ride a Yoshi, but whenever she got too close the results were always the same. Gross, but I guess worth it, I wrote at that time. Goomba spoke with her face set in a neutral look. It wasn't that much fun. Okay, she was lying, riding on a Yoshi's back was amazing, and she loved it. She was just frustrated that she couldn't do it without Naruto around to stop her from being eaten in a more dangerous way. She didn't seem sad on the outside, but Naruto could feel it. Going towards her, he leaned down and put his head between her legs before he hoisted her up onto his shoulders so that she was riding on top of him. She pat the top of his head as they started their walk back to the castle, no more words needing to be said. Piranha plant. Not sex. Surprisingly, despite having no issues with the idea of incest or just any real sexual inhibitions in general, the thing she wanted to do wasn't sexual in nature. Actually, it was something extremely tame in comparison. Thanks to the type of body she had, everything she did was a little sexual, but it only looked that way because of how she flaunted her looks. At the moment though, nothing sexual in nature was happening. The woman who couldn't go a month without having sex with insert moderately large number here of men and did actually try to have sex with her son on a regular basis was just relaxing with said son. Naruto knew of her sexual nature, and while he knew about it, even he didn't know the exact number. He didn't really care though, to be honest. He was having fun right now. It was a good piranha plant, not umami, these ones. Naruto said as he watered the garden's piranha plants with piranha plant. This was perhaps the only real non-sexual thing she did, other than try and protect him. She loved taking care of piranha plants, watering them, talking to them about her exploits, and trying to figure out how to make them like her. That way they could experience the kind of life that she was living, not the life of royalty, but the life of being free. Freedom, because able to walk on her own 2 feet, not bound to the dirt, but able to travel where she wanted to. Being able to have relationships not based on fear, be they sexual or not. Crash. If you thought a silly sign was going to. The day is a special day, and I never advocate for violence. Piranha plants. Naruto snapped his fingers, and all 200 of the piranha plants in the garden turned their heads towards Boset. She looked around at them and mentally weighed her options as fireballs started to gather in their open mouths. I'll be back tomorrow. See you tomorrow then, don't come until at least noon though, I have some early morning meetings I shouldn't miss. Naruto told her as she got back in her flying ride and flew off before the piranha plants opened fire at her. Piranha plant looked towards Naruto before she smiled and nodded her head. So you work really hard, have you ever thought of taking a vacation? Piranha plant asked him with a motherly, shocker, smile. No time right now, maybe this summer though. I have some business in the Bean Kingdom, but after that maybe a trip to Isle Delfino with all of you, my advisor, a few toads and maybe Peach. Naruto mentioned thoughtfully. His hardest working toads, his personal advisor, his heroine, and his mothers would be great to go to such a luxurious place together with. As a way for him to thank all of them for what they do for him and how they help make his life easier. It would be nice to get away from all the trouble for some time. Vacation. It took 3 months to make it happen, and it wasn't easy to clear everything in advance to make it happen either. To book a hotel room on Isle Delfino was easy, actually it was extremely easy. He was royalty, the second he so much as asked to get a room he had become top priority, despite Isle Delfino not being part of the Mushroom Kingdom. They used the same form of currency, coins were actually a very common currency used by most of the world, which made dealing with the Bean Kingdom that refused to use them difficult for most of the rest of the world. All the other kingdoms also had their own form of coins, their purple coins, but they still accepted gold coins. Getting the hotel room easy, very easy, making sure Boset did not know he was getting a hotel room difficult. Well, it was supposed to be difficult, but Boset's kidnappings as of late were a little less frequent and she herself was going on a vacation to spend some time with family. He didn't know she had any family. The fact they want me to build a race track on their island kind of odd, but I guess they want to be involved more with other kingdoms. Isle Delfino is the #1 tourist destination in the world for a reason. Naruto thought to himself as he looked at Toadsworth on his left side and Peach on his right side. They were currently riding his personal plane again, he was royalty, so it was expected that he not take public transportation when there were such dangerous risks to it after all. Not that he was a stranger to danger. Actually, considering how well Boset treated him, he kind of was a stranger to danger. Since she never actually put his life in danger by kidnapping him, all she did was mildly inconvenience him and stress him out. That was something he was more than capable of handling. Ooh, oh, that looks delicious. Peach was in her own la la land as she looked at the TV in front of them, showing Isle Delfino. He raised an eyebrow. This was odd. For a second, on the screen, he was pretty sure he saw Peach's shadow that looked like Peach, jumping around in the background. Unsure of what to make of that, he looked at Peach. Did you see? Naruto stopped when he saw her eyes were heart-shaped and she seemed unable to hear his words. Toadsworth, did you see that? Well, you're observant. Naruto stopped himself from even waiting for the answer when he saw that Toadsworth was in La La Land as well, no doubt imaging how relaxing or fun the vacation was going to be. The advisor, the guy who didn't do all that much, was stressed out, ignoring the fact that Naruto was the one who ran the kingdom and dealt with other kingdoms and Boset. The last few kidnappings had been the most embarrassing to say the least, though they failed. He still needed to apologize to Boset for that last one. Failed kidnapping 1. Thank you Queen Bean, it's always a pleasure doing business with you. Standing in front of Naruto was the massive figure that was Queen Bean, not massive like Boset, but her entire body was shaped like her namesake. She had green skin, with a massively rounded, and there were no kind words. She was overweight to the extreme, though there was muscle there too. Still, standing at a tall height greater than his own, his hand was minuscule in comparison to her own massive one, and shaking it was a bit of a challenge. Usually, he went to her kingdom to do their business deals, but this time she had traveled to his castle, which was a novel experience. Nothing dear prince, it's always a pleasure if only you were green, you would be just my type. Queen Bean noted as she let go of his hand. He was going to need his arm put back into its socket again and a massage to reduce the soreness of that. Every time he dealt with her, she was friendly, but she did not know her own strength. Well, I'll see you out. Naruto noticed that Queen Bean, instead of a chair, had been sitting on a knocked-out Boset for the past 2 hours. Failed kidnapping 2. I'm the Big Bob-omb, Baron of all blasting matter, King of Kabooms the world over. Nice to see you again King Bob-omb, I hope the ride over here wasn't too bumpy for you. Naruto didn't mind dealing with this explosive monarch too much, since this kind was part of the Mushroom Kingdom. While he held the title of king, he was still subservient to those of the Toadstool family as a general rule. Though, he was annoying. Like how he leaned forward right now. Still no mustache on that face of yours, as a prince, you need one to show your servants your status you should take after me and grow out a fine one, but nothing will compare to my. Naruto sighed and put a helmet on his head before he grabbed his blast shield and held it in front of him. He came to meeting room prepared for the worst, knowing that there was a chance a sneeze of epic proportions could happen. Prince Naruto, prepare your hand, because today is the hand I take it for my. Boom. Just as soon as Boset jumped through the window and landed in the middle of the room, King Bob-omb exploded and sent her flying right back out the window and into the distant skies above. Naruto had already been fully prepared and suffered no damage from the blast. The King of Explosions on the other hand, was on the ground out cold from his own explosion. Failed kidnapping 3. Prince Naruto, it's been such a long time. Boset, why can't you kidnap me? Naruto thought to himself as he was picked up and hugged by perhaps the one person he just could not deal with. She looked a lot similar to Peach honestly, but with more tanned skin, a rounder face, brown hair, and she wore a yellow princess dress. Wow, you've been doing sports muscles, and you've grown your hair out a little, just love this look. Hey, you should take off your shirt so I can see if you've changed, Daisy said as she inspected his body, and he managed to get out of her grasp. She laughed in a good-natured way, her voice showing off her tomboyish personality as she wrapped an arm around his shoulder. Glad that you're safe from that nasty Boset girl. Aren't you happy I showed up unannounced? Daisy asked with a large grin. Naruto just groaned. Right, because if she had announced herself, he would have made sure he was kidnapped again. She didn't need to know that though. Yeah, it's unfortunate what happened last time. So, why don't we take this conversation into your private hot springs, I know you've got a really good one hidden. Daisy judged him with an eager face. She remembered bathing with him all the time as a kid, seeing as their kingdoms were super close, and the kings always had them play together when they were doing king stuff. They played, bathed, and had fun, though Naruto always seemed so happy when she was leaving, but that was just excitement for the next time she would come over. We're adults now, we can't be. Oh come on now, you've got nothing I haven't seen before unless you never got bigger, and you're embarrassed about it. Daisy laughed at her own joke, while Naruto shivered in annoyance. To think, all those I yanked on it must have made it bigger. Daisy grinned as she fondly remembered learning the difference in sex by seeing a naked Naruto and yanking on his thing. Naruto shivered at the memory. Oh hell no, you are not taking my prince. Boset. Daisy turned around, jumped up, and slapped Boset in the face the second that she laid eyes on her. The second the slap connected, Boset went flying through the air, clear over the castle until she was out of sight. Daisy had a mean slap. Failed kidnapping 4. I've got nothing planned for the rest of the day after I get dressed, I should see if Peach wants to golf. Naruto, with a towel around his waist, sat down and started to dry his hair with a blow dryer. It was just one of those rare days that he really didn't have anything planned. He had no meetings. There was nothing that needed his dire attention, nobody was going to be visiting from other kingdoms. Boset had just kidnapped him yesterday, so there was little chance that she was going to do it today. Overall, he didn't have anything to do now. Piranha Plant was in New Donk City doing who knows how many of the men there, she was on vacation. Koopa was sick, though she just needed some rest. Goomba was with Shygal, the two of them were having a girls' day together, doing whatever it was they did. Everything was just kind of boring. Heck, even a Boset kidnapping would be welcome over this boring atmosphere of having nothing to do. The vacation to Isle Delfino wasn't for another 3 weeks either. Prince Naruto Prince. Naruto froze completely after jumping when Boset and Peach both came rushing into his room out of nowhere. In deep thought, he hadn't heard them running down the hallways and he hadn't been expecting them. Tell this loser that you love me more, show this Koopa that I'm your hero. Violence was never the answer to anything. When the two of them stopped what they were doing and saw that his towel had slipped off and his body was still wet from his bath, they each had their own reactions. Boset, who had never seen a naked, male, humanoid in her life, wasn't quite sure what to make of the sight. She appreciated the view though, she wasn't aware of how Naruto compared to other men. That is really cute, you're bigger than my brothers. At the same time, they were really in sync today, they both said things that were equally embarrassing for Naruto. Peach had brothers, with little sense of shame, that she lived with, so it made sense for her not to be too embarrassed over a naked man. She appreciated the view, but this was still within the realm of normal for her. Her cheeks were a little pink, and she averted her eyes when she realized she was staring at the prince naked. Being called cute was humiliating. Being compared to a girl's brothers was weird. Naruto's mothers had taught him patience, understanding, and how to solve problems without violence. He had been a pretty rowdy child himself, and he did have a temper that he bottled up for the sake of his kingdom. He never had any weak moments where he would allow his temper to control him, at least, he had never found himself in a situation as an adult where he would be this embarrassed, humiliated, and caught naked like this. Naruto slowly wrapped his towel back around his waist with a burning red face, an intense blush. He walked right in front of them and he gestured for Boset to lean down to his level. Naruto grabbed both of their heads and with one smooth motion, he slammed the two of them together head to head so hard that they collapsed in a heap on the floor. Naruto's whisker marks thicker and more animalistic in his humiliation and his eyes burning red in color to make his fire-like blush. End of montage flashback. Yeah, he owed Boset an apology after that last one, he shouldn't have allowed himself to get so overrun by his embarrassment and get caught up in that. He never knew why Boset and Peach were together in the castle and no alarms had sounded to announce her. Still, he was ashamed of himself for laying his hands on somebody in violence. It went against everything his mothers had taught him as a child. Next time he saw Boset, he was going to ask her why she visited his castle the other day without breaking a window and apologize for hurting her. Maybe he would bake her a chocolate and cherry flavored cake, that was her favorite flavor after all. This is a nice relaxing soak, the Koopalings better not mess with my kingdom while I'm on vacation. Boset stated as she laid back and relaxed in the hot springs of Isle Delfino's volcano. A large tub made just for her when the people learned that she was coming to their island for her family vacation. After the stressful few weeks that she had been having, she really needed it. Just a nice long, relaxing soak was needed. A nice long soak with her daughter. Yes, daughter. Mama, tell me more about Papa Naruto. Boset Jr., her daughter, her one and only daughter. Several months previously, she had applied with the magical baby island in order for a stork to bring her a Koopa child of her own, with her own DNA. Boset Jr. was a perfect replica of herself, down to almost every last detail. Standing at close to 3'11" in height, the average height for a very young Koopa, since her kind were quite mature, even when they were new to the world, with all of the same looks in general as her. Just smaller, and instead of a dress, she wore a simple black skirt and a white bandana with a graffiti mouth on it. A cute little tail and a cute little spiked shell, and she wore regular sweatbands in black around her wrists and neck instead of spiked chokers. Papa is just the best. The first time I met him, he captivated me from the start. He's kind, loving, and an amazing prince to his people. Your papa is amazing. Boset stated with a wide grin on her face. She sighed and laid the back of her head against a large water basin they were in, though Boset Jr.'s feet were the only thing that she was soaking at the moment. She could swim, she just didn't want to get her new paintbrush wet, a very large paintbrush that was taller than she was. And Peach. I'll crush Peach into dust for always getting in the way, Boset roared out as she slammed her hand against the side of the bath and cracked the stone side. Her eyes went from blue to burning red for a second as flames poured out of her mouth before she calmed herself down and wiped the spit from her lip. Peach is a horrible, bad woman, she always takes Naruto away from me. Papa would be with us right now, but he was kidnapped by the plumber Peach. Boset looked away from Boset Jr. when she said that, since she knew that the lie would be detectable in her eyes. She had yet to introduce Naruto to her daughter, since she herself had only been a mother for a while now. She wanted to introduce them, but she had wanted Boset Jr. to get some base values that were important to being Koopa royalty before she met with Naruto. Instilling those important values of power and conquest were important factors that helped develop a young Koopa into a proper adult one day, and if she had introduced them before those values took hold, then Naruto might not approve of the lessons. Crush Peach. Is Peach strong? Bosset Jr. asked as she held onto her paintbrush tightly, with narrowing eyes. She never fights fairs, I would have crushed her 1,000 times over if only she fought me in a fair way. She is a bully. If you want to fight her, you've got to outsmart her. Bosset growled out as she flexed each of her fingers. She started to grow in size as her rage took hold of her, becoming larger and larger, before she let out a calming breath and returned to her usual 9'3" size and let loose a sigh. They are here on the island now, but Bosset was interrupted when Bosset Jr. jumped into the water and splashed her face. She sank below the surface of the water, only her tail out of the water, before she popped up with just her head and part of her tail. Then, I will rescue Papa Naruto. Peach should be in jail soon enough. I've made sure of that myself. Bosset Jr. stated with a wide, sharp-toothed smile. Bosset blinked. Ahahahaha. That's my kiddo. Bosset laughed loudly as she rubbed the top of her daughter's head. She didn't know when her daughter escaped her line of sight, not that she ever kept an eye on her child anyway, but she was amused to hear this. She had just assumed that her child was terrorizing the locals with pranks or something, letting a young Koopa go around and do what they wanted. That was how they learned and grew stronger. You're a chip off the old block. Also, where did you get that paintbrush? Bosset asked with a tilted head, having not seen her daughter with that before the trip. A strange old man in a white coat gave it to me. Sounds like Professor Egad and it has that mad scientist symbol on it. Oh well, whatever. Junior seems to like it. Bosset closed her eyes and relaxed in the water, sinking down to her chin in it. She started to breath small amounts of fire into the water. The fire came out as super hot bubbles instead and superheated the water around her so that it was more like what she was used to. I used my Shadow Peach trick to make him think I was Peach and he just gave it to me, such a dumb old genius. Ahahaha. Bosset laughed as she floated on her back moments later, laughing up a storm as she imagined Gad falling for such a little trick. Then again, his eyes weren't that great. She had kidnapped him a few times to build machines for her, machines that were destroyed by Peach and Mario Luigi on occasions. Her Koopa clown car was an bad forced invention, since she forced him to build it for her and then build more for the Koopalings, and she was going to have one built for Bosset Jr. Bosset Jr. smiled widely when she heard her mother's laugh before she jumped from the water and landed on the stone siding. She took her bandana around her neck and moved it over her mouth, her form shape shifting into a watery shadowy version of Peach. She had a papa to get. With Naruto. Achoo. Are you okay, Prince Naruto? Toadsworth asked as the two of them waited together for Peach to be released from jail so that she could start to clean the goo from the island. When they arrived on the island, they had right away been met with a large inky creature resembling a piranha plant. Peach had found a water machine, jetpack object that helped her to clean up the creature. Then she had been taken to jail, and though Naruto tried to defend her, it was a hard case when they had eyewitnesses that stated Peach did it. Naruto was royalty, but he had no control over Isle Delfino since it wasn't part of the Mushroom Kingdom. Thankfully, she had managed to reduce the sentence from death to community service. The shine spites the sunshine is so weak now here. This place seems so sad. I hope Peach can help this place. Naruto stated as he stood next to his toads, who he was having to keep away from goo since they wanted to touch it. Naruto took a deep breath before he sighed to himself. What a start to a vacation. Also, where were his mothers? Naruto, you toadstool. Title. Prince. Height. 180 centimeters, 5'11". Information. The peach-skinned, blonde-haired ruler of the Mushroom Kingdom, adopted and raised as the crown prince of the nation. A kind ruler who cares deeply for his citizens and advocates for peace among the kingdoms. Once a young boy with attitude, now grown into the calm ruler needed for his kingdom. Note. Does anything bother this guy? Bosset Koopa. Title. Queen. Height. 282 centimeters, 297 in heels, 93, 99 in heels. Information. The rough and tumble queen of the Koopa Kingdom, originally Bowser, before eating a cursed super crown as a baby and taking on a humanoid female form. The strong ruler who takes what she wants when she wants it. The only thing she wishes to do more than conquer the kingdoms is marry Prince Naruto. Note. A truly hopeless romantic at heart. Bosset Koopa Jr., Bosset Jr. Title. Princess. Height. 120 centimeters, 3'11". Information. The new blood to the Koopa line, a highly intelligent youngster who after mere months of life had already surpassed her own mother in intelligence. Arrogant to a fault, prankster by nature, and with an uncanny resemblance to her mother, she wants to make her family complete by taking down a certain pink plumber. Note. A smaller than normal Koopa princess with attitude to make up for it. Peach Mario. Title. Plumber. Height. 186 centimeters, 6'1". Information. The original princess of the Mushroom Kingdom by a mistake at delivery, now the humble youngest sibling to a trio of plumbers. A modest and brave tomboy who has a fierce loyalty to the Mushroom Kingdom and a deep love for her family and friends. The physically weakest of the plumbers, but she wouldn't trade the life she has for anything, even if it meant ruling a kingdom. Note: a plumber with feelings deeper than any clogged drain. Mario. Title: Plumber. Height: 155 centimeters, 5'1". Information: the shortest and oldest of the plumber siblings, his iconic mustache is the symbol of the family business, and he is the best at what he does in it. A hero at heart and a plumber in body, he has absolute faith in his family to be able to handle themselves when push comes to shove. Note: the world's most fantastic mustache. Luigi Mario. Title: Plumber. Height: 175 centimeters, 5'9". Information: the middle child has neither Peach's jumping prowess or Mario's bravery and strength. Suffering from near-permanent cowardism, he is only able to overcome his fear when something truly precious to him is in danger. The list of his fears is as long as the day is long, and then some. Note: Green Mario. Daisy Sarasa. Title: Princess. Height: 180 centimeters, 5'11". Information: the tomboy childhood friend of the prince, with a no-holds-barred style to friendship, zero personal space issues, and a temper as fiery as any Koopa. A fierce tease in nature, some say the reason the prince is so calm was to balance out the spitfire of a princess. The princess and prince have been known to have a sibling-like relationship, though is the truth something deeper? Note: the source of the prince's headaches. Koopa, girl. Title: the prince's mama. Height: 173 centimeters, 5'8". Information: once a normal green-shelled Koopa, ate a mystic and cursed mushroom enchanted by the dangerous Kamek and turned into a female and humanoid form of her species. The most level-headed of the four motherly figures is often the voice of reason that gets listened to. Athletic to a fault, she uses her body before her brain to fix many problems. Note: though the most sensible, not the most intelligent, and will walk off a cliff if she doesn't pay attention. Shygal. Title: the prince's mother. Height: 170 centimeters, 5'7". Information: a normal shy guy in every single way before she ate one of Kamek's experimental mushrooms and took on a female form. The non-speaking intelligent one of the four, often her intelligence is forgotten when she jumps into making rash choices. The physically weakest of the mothers, she uses her mind to solve issues. Note: can and will kill anyone who touches her baby boy. Goomba, girl. Title: the prince's mom. Height: 141 centimeters, 4'8". Information: not intelligent and not stupid, not strong and not weak, but this mother of the prince has something the other three mothers lack: common sense. A Goomba transformed into a woman by Kamek's cursed mushrooms, she too took part in the raising of the prince. The perfect balance that keeps the other mothers in line, some say it was truly because of her that the prince grew into a decent person. Note: nobody pays attention to Goombas, a curse she still suffers from. Piranha plant, girl. Title: the prince's mommy. Height: 183 centimeters, 198 in heels, 6'5" in heels. Information: the slutty slut of the mothers, while the other mothers have their fair share of lust, Piranha Plant when gaining a human form and learned of pleasure, became obsessed with it. The strongest and dumbest of the mother quartet and allows her lust and power to do the talking for her. If she had a gold coin for every different partner she has had, she would be the richest in the lands. The only thing she loves more than sex is her baby boy. Note: a plant-turned-sex machine, she'll do it with nearly anyone, even her own son if she wasn't stopped. Duet. Title: Queen Boset's ally. Height. Information. Note: Kamek, stop making cursed super crowns. He had to admit, the graffiti-like paint everywhere was kind of pretty in its own right, in how vibrant some of the colors were. There were some beautiful mixes of colors, and then there were the still very vibrant brown shades as well. The colors all looked rather appeasing to the eye, and it didn't give off a horrible stench either that one would expect. It didn't smell good, but it didn't smell bad either. Prince, surely, you would still prefer relaxing. Despite the state of Delfino Isle, you're still on vacation. Naruto mostly ignored Toadsworth as he looked over the papers that he had with him. He had a pen in hand and was signing some things. He didn't have a ton of work with him, and the work he did have was not for his own kingdom. Boset has a low reading level, and her political negotiations are abysmal to say the least. I'm doing something for her kingdom, to open up a little tourism for her. I am plotting a few racing tracks that will go through some of her unused castles. Naruto had a detailed map of several of her castles, and he was plotting a racing track on them. He was making adjustments that he would give to Kamek so that he would be able to make the adjustments to the castles in order to make them themed racing tracks instead of usable castles. Boset. She isn't here, seriously, once you get past her personality flaws, her horrible eating habits, and her utter lack of royal aura, she isn't that bad to be around. Once I get the racing set up, I do plan on allowing her to participate. I even sent invitations to Peach's brothers and several others who could please a crowd. Naruto explained with a cheeky grin that slipped through. He planned on televising all of the races so that everyone could enjoy them and participate in some light gambling, within restrictions, to prevent his toads from getting gambling addictions. He already had several casinos throughout his kingdom, but his toads didn't often visit them. They were usually visited by Koopas and Goombas, with some shy guys. Still, you can't expect her to. Toadsworth, I won't hear another word on the subject. Let me remind you, this isn't a democracy, I am your ruler. You are my advisor, true, but in the end it is on me to make the final choices on all things concerning my kingdom. Naruto glanced at Toadsworth, who could sometimes forget his place. He was extremely caring, and he was somebody that Naruto respected greatly, who would always have his opinion valued. Still, Naruto valuing his wealth of experience didn't matter when he knew for a fact that Boset would be a little less likely to conquer other kingdoms for riches if her own kingdom was pulling in tourism. She didn't have a mind for it, she was a total idiot, so he had taken it upon himself to contact Kamek and work on her kingdom behind her back. Woo. A small jellyfish-like creature filled with goo crawled towards them before it tensed up and jumped towards them. Shygal jumped in front of the gooey creature and it splattered all over her, covering parts of her in goo. Peach was currently doing battle against a giant gooey imitation of a piranha plant, and one of these little helper creatures must have broken off from the pack and tried to attack them. Shygal had taken the blow for them and she landed in the sand, turning her head to look at Naruto. She sent him a thumbs up that was barely visible from under her sleeves. He gave her a thumbs up back. Wow, you get so used to seeing our own slutty piranha plant that you sometimes forget other types exist. Peach seems to be having a rough time working on the cleaning. Koopa walked down the steps and got onto the beach, looking at everything that was going on. The mini-boss-like monster seemed to ignore everything but Peach, and most of the tiny goops seemed to ignore most of them. Where is mommy? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. He hadn't seen her all day. Actually, where was Goomba for that matter? Usually these days she didn't go too far away from him. She would stay somewhere in the background, but she kept her eye on him for fear that he would get kidnapped. Eating and not in her usual way. She found a fruit stand and she is pigging out. The fruit here is super juicy. Koopa stated with a cool tone. She just watched as Peach used her water jetpack to fight off the monster. She sprayed it in its mouth and it seemed to suffer from swallowing the water. Ooh, I'm not a fan of Peach's way of dealing with creatures. I think I saw her stomp on a regular Koopa's head. Koopa stated with a shiver, remembering the days when she had an actual shell. Her usual way. Toadsworth never paid much attention to the mothers. She sticks her feet in water and drinks up nutrients. She rarely uses her mouth to eat, but she has never been to Isle Delfino. Koopa spoke as she winced upon seeing the monster resembling a piranha plant get destroyed. At the goo that made up the monster started to vanish, and she nudged Naruto with her foot as she started to lay down in the sand. This goo stuff isn't that bad, might be good for the skin. Koopa took the good with the bad on this vacation. Naruto just hummed as he finished plotting out the first track and started to plot out the second one, ignoring the statue rising up from the goo behind him. This land here could be used as a golf course, it's in the perfect spot and there is no natural function for this land due to the terrain itself. Naruto looked at the map and circled it, labeling it for a future golf course. Shadow Peach appeared on top of the statue, looking down at Naruto. It's you, the one who framed me. Peach shouted as she got ready to battle her copy. Naruto glanced up when he heard that shout, turning around to see Shadow Peach on top of the statue. Naruto blinked in surprise, the thing he saw in the video being confirmed to be true now. So Peach didn't actually do it. Just how low is your opinion of her family? Naruto asked Koopa, who seemed shocked by the fact Peach was actually innocent. Naruto turned and saw Shadow Peach jump off of the statue and land feet away from him. Oh, here we go again. Naruto stated with dull eyes when he was picked up and thrown over Shadow Peach's shoulder. Yep, couldn't even go on vacation without being kidnapped. Prince Naruto. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Naruto called out to them as Shadow Peach started to run away from everyone, making her escape as the real Peach followed after, trying to spray them with water. He was too used to this at this point, so Naruto just continued the work he was doing as he plotted an 18-hole golf course. He would talk with Boset later about getting her workforces to start construction, maybe next time she kidnapped him. Do you mind kidnapping me a little more gently? Your running is making it hard to make golf courses for the Koopa Kingdom. Naruto questioned his kidnapper with a raised eyebrow. It was a reasonable request, naturally. Naruto got a face full of water, courtesy of Peach, and he noticed the way that it seemed to discomfort Shadow Peach. Naruto sighed to himself before he grabbed onto Shadow Peach's ear and yanked on it, bringing Shadow Peach to a halt instantly. Oh wee. Naruto landed on his feet and continued to hold onto Shadow Peach's ear. Look, now the map is all wet. I have to start over again and I worked so hard on this. Okay, time to drop the disguise. Naruto twisted Shadow Peach's ear some more and the diggas started to fade away as Peach arrived to their spot. It's your fault. Peach was stopped when Shadow Peach transformed into a mini Boset. This is hilarious, Boset ate a poison mushroom. Peach laughed as she pointed at the smaller Boset. Her grips temporarily put on hold as she mocked Boset, who was nearly the height of her oldest brother. Naruto looked at the different hairstyle and the general attitude that she was giving off. I'm not Mama, I'm Boset Jr. I heard all about you from Mama, you're the big bad bully who always kidnapped Papa Naruto. Boset Jr. shouted as she jerked her ear out of Naruto's grip. Naruto looked at Boset Jr. in confusion for only a brief moment. His mind starting to go as he put two and two together. Okay, this made more sense. Phew. Naruto sighed audibly. Boset must have put in an order from the storks for a baby of her own, meaning this was a Boset's daughter. Boset, the crazed woman, must have filled this child's head with lies. Boset, who didn't get raised by parents, would naturally allow Boset Jr. to do whatever she wanted. Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose as he grabbed onto Boset Jr.'s shoulder before she could make her escape. Appa. You seem smarter than your mother, so I'm going to give you the option: apologize to the people of this island and help Peach clean. Wait, if she did it, why do I still have to clean? Peach asked with a shocked look. You are an adult, though this child caused the trouble, it is only natural that adults help the child make amends for their mistakes. You are an adult and you have the tools for the job. Naruto explained to Peach with a tone that left zero room for arguments. He expected her to be an outstanding adult and offer a helping hand. Boset Jr. was stunned into silence. What was going on? Apologize? Boset Jr. thought as the odd word went through her head. She knew what it meant, but she also knew she wasn't supposed to do it either. Apologize to the people of this island and help Peach clean, or I will punish you the way that Boset won't, the way a parent is supposed to, and make you apologize. Naruto gave the options and allowed Boset Jr. to make the choice. The others started to arrive by this time as well. I'm not gonna help Peach and I'm not gonna apologize either. Naruto grabbed her ear and started to pull her towards the nearest public bathroom, not an ounce of hesitation. If Boset had raised this girl to believe him to be her father, when for the moment he was going to take on that role and show this girl what it meant to have a father who would offer discipline. Naruto and Boset Jr. disappeared in the bathroom while the others looked a little confused. What is going on? Goomba asked with curious glance at the bathroom. Boset had a kid. Peach answered back. Really? Koopa questioned with some surprise as well, before they all winced when they heard something very loud. Smack. They heard the smacking sound of flesh on flesh and a shout of pain echo from the bathroom. They heard a second smack and a third smack, and the smacks kept going and going for an entire minute as they all just listened to the sounds of punishment being given. Piranha Plant walked up during this. Ooh, I hear the sounds of fun, can I be next? Piranha Plant looked towards the bathroom with a wide smile. Everyone just stared at her with a dubious look, showing that they weren't so sure how to respond to that. The smacking stopped. Naruto appeared to walk out of the bathroom, holding Boset Jr.'s hand as she rubbed her tear-stained cheeks with her other hand. Her butt had the burning red handprint on it as Naruto pulled the back of her skirt down before he used his free hand to gently rub the top of her head as well. Now, I'll go with you to apologize and then we are taking you to your mother. I understand you are Koopa royalty, but that is no excuse to hurt these people's way of life. Naruto gently lectured the child following the spanking. The girl just nodded her head as she continued to cry, but she rubbed her forehead into his headpats as well. This was no doubt the first time in her life she was spanked or punished at all for doing bad things. Okay Papa, I won't sniff hurt Isle Delfino anymore, Boset Jr. apologized to Naruto, even though he was still going to make her apologize to all the residents on the island as well. She opened her eyes and she glared hatefully at Peach though. As if being punished were Peach's fault, Naruto sighed a little because a single punishment wasn't enough to knock out the Koopa nature in her. Still, he wasn't going to punish her for being a Koopa child just when she did something bad. Glaring at Peach wasn't something he would spank her for. Now, Peach, keep cleaning while I help Boset Jr. here to apologize. Naruto told Peach, who seemed to regretfully salute to Naruto's command. Naruto pulled on Boset Jr.'s hand, urging her to come with him. Maybe after, he could enjoy a nice vacation once he redid the work that he had done and finished the light work he brought with him. Who knows, it might be possible to turn Boset Jr. into an upstanding person if he started to correct her nasty ways while she was still young. It was time to test nature versus nurture. Okay, head count. Naruto went through a list to make sure that everyone got what they needed and were all ready to board the plane. The vacation was over, the island was all cleaned of goo, thanks to the combined efforts of Peach and Bosset Jr., who hated Peach with a passion. Everyone had a lot of fun, and he had finished the little business that he needed to do on the island. Koopa. Koopa stated as she raised her hand, having a large suitcase filled with preserved foods from the island that she was going to save for later snacking days. Under her other arm, she had a jar filled with sand from one of the many beaches on the island. She was even wearing a different shirt with a sprite on the front of it, though she wore the same shorts as always. Goomba. Goomba was relaxed with her hoodie shaped with a sleeveless version of it, what fell just below her breasts. She had a sunburn, but otherwise she seemed like she had fun as well. Drop the egg. Naruto stated to her, and she allowed a large Yashi egg that she was hiding behind her back to fall to the ground. She had been eaten a few times by the Yashi of the island, thankfully with only slight mental trauma from it. Koopa loved to collect things, all types of things, so she was the type to bring back a ton of stuff. Goomba was the opposite of her in that regard. Peach. Peach stated as she raised a hand, wearing tourist gear instead of overalls. Flood was still on her back, since she was going to be keeping the pack at her home with her brothers. With Flood. Peach added, and Flood gave a nod to show its acceptance of this. Naruto gave them a nod, since he would approve that. Shygal was covered in flowers, a flower necklace, headband, and her hoodie was shortened so that it covered half of her breasts, and she wore a grass skirt. She didn't have anything visible on her that was suspicious to him at first glance. Empty them. Naruto stated to her. Shygal hesitated before she started to take objects out of random spots on her body and out of the flowers that she was using to hide things. Naruto wanted to account for everything that was being taken with them from the island to make sure all of it was fine. Shygal had taken several rare mushrooms that only grew on the island, as well as smuggling research papers from the lab that Gad had on the island hidden. He didn't know when she had the time to find it or what else was there, but the blueprints for some strange item was nestled between her breasts. Naruto recorded everything that she was trying to smuggle and nodded his head so that she could pick them back up. Bosset. Bosset shouted loudly, not technically with their group it would seem, and she had the happiest smile on her face. She had forgotten her usual dress and was wearing the local fashions of the species of the island, made to fit her size. Since she needed to get home too, she was simply being given a ride. Also, Naruto wanted to make sure that she and her daughter didn't try and get up to something once he left the island. Bosset Jr. Bosset Jr. raised her hand up, dutifully since Naruto had called for a roll call. Naruto looked at her with her brush, and his eyes wandered over her body to make sure that she too wasn't trying to smuggle something. I won't do anything bad while Papa is around. Bosset Jr. puffed her non-existent chest out with pride. She wouldn't do anything while he was around, as a proud member of the Koopa royal blood, she would keep doing bad things, so long as she could get away with it. AKA when Naruto wasn't around to spank her for it. While she could get away with things with her mother, she quickly learned not to cross her papa anytime soon. Piranha Plant didn't even try to hide the fact that she had done a lot of naughty things over the course of the vacation. She had from where she had been in the sunlight for extremely extensive periods of time, she didn't burn, with her dress on, while she did her dirty deeds where everyone could see. It had been a hassle keeping her away from Bosset Jr. in order to prevent the Koopa princess from learning from her horrible example. Her luggage were no doubt sex tapes that she had recorded of herself with the loyals, all the different sentient species of the island, as well as photos of the local plants, which was her family-friendly hobby. Piranha Plant. Also Piranha Plant. Piranha Plant too. What? Koopa and Goomba asked in sync, while Shygal started to count the numbers of piranha plants with human female forms. She pointed at 3 of them and saw that 2 more had been hiding behind theirs. They had the same height and figure, but the leaves on top of their hats were different and their green hairstyles were different as well. Naruto blinked for a moment. Huh? Bosset Jr. asked when she noticed the wrong number of piranha plants, and Bosset herself just blinked in confusion and began counting their numbers on her fingers. I've soaked up so much sunshine while here that I've reproduced by putting my seeds in the ground, and these are my sister clones Piranha Plant and also Piranha Plant. Piranha Plant introduced her sisters, since they were exact genetic copies of her down to her memories and personality. They weren't her children, since they had 0 genetic diversity from herself, and they did have all her memories as well. Everyone looked to Naruto to try and see how he would take this. He just raised an eyebrow. Then Aunt and Auntie it is then, you with the long straight hair will be Aunt Plant, and you with the curly hair will be Auntie then. Everything is solved, since we've been here for 2 weeks, and you only produced 2 of them, it seemed that we don't need to worry about any more surprises. Welcome to the family, Toadsworth, set them up with their papers when we return. Naruto took the new information in stride, not being surprised or bothered by it for the most part. Her biology was different in that, unlike humanoids and Koopas, instead of reproducing by stork, her species actually did so by the females of the species cloning themselves. It would seem that instead of getting her offspring by stork, she got them by self-replication just like a normal piranha plant did. Yes. Lesbian. Child present, don't say those next two words. Naruto could tell they were going to say something along the lines of lesbian masturbation orgy or something, since they were just as likely to fuck each other despite being the same genetically. If his parent was willing to try and have sex with him since he was a toddler, then no doubt she would have sex with herself. Anyway, since we're all here, let's get everyone in the plane. Naruto gestured for everyone to start walking by him. This was a fun vacation, I can't wait to tell Mario and Luigi all about it. Peach spoke with a wide smile as she passed him. She had gotten to do so much fun stuff after the island had been cleaned up, which had gone by really quickly, with the help of the little shit Bosset Jr. Naruto hummed in response as everyone passed by him. I'll kidnap you my love when we get back home. Bosset told him with a determined stare, only to hit her face on the plane's door when she forgot to crouch down. Being 9'3" was not a convenient thing when everything was made for people shorter than her. Not to mention the fact she wore 6-inch heels that added even more to her height, so she was closer to 10 feet tall with those added on. Prince, are you sure that it is okay for more of her to be allowed? Toadsworth asked as the triple threat piranha combo passed by him, giggling and whispering amongst each other. Naruto didn't even spare him a glance. Life is precious, be it man, woman, child, or self-replication. She isn't evil, just lustful, and her clones being the same way is worrisome, simply because it means I have to do more work to keep their activities under control. Other than being a future headache for me, they've done nothing wrong. Naruto was strict with Toadsworth on this. They were a new extension of his family, which was all he needed to ensure their protection. Toadsworth was just being a little racist, thanks to the general opinion toads held of the other species, and not racist in hatred, but racist in fear. He was afraid of Piranha Plant and the rest of his mothers, so it was hard for him to accept more of them into the world. This was the mindset that he was trying to change in the world, that you needed to fear what you didn't understand. It was why he tried to always look at everything with as open a mind as possible and accept people for their flaws while correcting the parts of them that were harmful to others. Yes sir. Toadsworth was a little flustered that he received a firm tone like that. Right, Prince Naruto was different than King Toadstool, unlike his father Naruto was truly suited for negations and had the aura of royalty when he was serious. He was a leader that you didn't follow out of obligation, you followed him because his aura was that of somebody you wanted to believe in. People of the kingdom had faith in him because he was somebody who you just felt safe with, he would be kind and caring when needed, but he had a firmness to him that was an iron will of unbreaking resolve. When Prince Naruto had his mind set on something he could not be stopped. Oh, my headaches are already worse because of them. Naruto sighed to himself as he looked at the sexual complaints against his newfound aunts, the newly born piranha women were already sexually on the prowl. Piranha Plant alone could cause a country's worth of sexual assault claims, and it had taken years before she learned what the point of not molesting the toads meant. Now there were two more of her, who were just as slutty and were just as new to the sensations of their bodies as she had once been. Oh Priance. Not now Bosset, I'm busy, you've already kidnapped me, I've got a lot of work to do. Naruto mentioned as he worked on signing certain papers that he had brought with him, with one hand. She had kidnapped him while he was working, so he had been able to take his work with him to keep himself busy. Bosset showed him a ring. Do you like this ring with my symbol on it, or this ring with my symbol on it? Bosset showed a different ring, only this one was silver instead of gold. Why are you in a towel? Naruto raised his head and looked at her, considering that she was literally wearing nothing but a towel at the moment. Her hair was dripping wet and she seemed to actually have been taking special care of herself. She even had a facial mask on, with her perfect skin it wasn't needed, but her taking her own beauty into account was new. You know what the reason is? Since we're getting married. I want to be ready for the wedding night, Prince. Yep, figured it was something like that. Don't talk that way around Bosset Jr., it's inappropriate for a girl her age to hear. Naruto lectured Bosset as he used his cheek to cover Bosset Jr.'s ear and his free hand to cover the other ear. Since he was tied up currently, Bosset Jr. had taken the chance to curl up in his lap and look at the papers that he was working on. He didn't mind her sitting in his lap so much as he minded Bosset implying crude things in front of her daughter. I want to do something. I want to. Naruto flexed his arms and snapped the ropes that were binding his body before he grabbed Bosset and Bosset Jr. by the ears and started to drag them towards the door. Bosset being forced to drastically lean down in order for his hand to hold onto her ear, neither of them were able to escape from his iron finger grasp. Okay, we're going to be getting rid of this energy you two have and teach you something constructive. We're going to be playing a good game of. -30 minutes later. Soccer. Naruto finished as he finished drawing a chalk line around the field they would be using, which was behind Boset's castle. He got the dry bones to set up some basic nets on either side of the field, and while it wasn't the best ball in the world, he got Kamek to bring them a soccer ball as well. Boset blinked in confusion. "We're going to play." Junior was just super happy. "We're going to get some good physical activity, remember, always try to get in at least 30 minutes of some kind of physical activity every few days to maintain your health. Proper diet and exercise are the only ways to ensure the most healthy of lifestyles." Naruto turned to the camera filming them, the Lakitu that was floating above them with a camera at this very moment, and he spoke that line with such a smile. "The basics are simple, get the ball into the net without your hands." Naruto kicked the ball over to Boset, who had taken off her heels for this and put on sneakers at his demand. She swooned. "We're playing together. Now, since we don't have enough players, we will have 2 dry bones guarding the nets. Since I play sports quite a bit, it's only fair that I go against both of you." Naruto stretched his legs and back, preparing himself for the game. "I'm going to beat you, Papa." Junior pointed at him, and he just continued to loosen his body up. "But Prince, you're so small and feeble compared to the Koopa royal bloodline." -2 hours later. "How?" Boset asked as she knelt down on the ground, sweating from practically every part of her body as she looked at Junior, who had collapsed a while ago and was put on the bench. She looked towards Naruto, who had barely even broke a sweat from their activity. "You're strong and fast, but your body isn't one born through hard work and effort. You're just naturally beautiful with a good figure. A good ruler is sound in both body and mind, so I've been doing sports since I was a kid." Naruto lightly kicked the ball into the net, finishing out their little game, since he had done what he had been planning on doing. "It's me, Mario." "Hello, Mario, is Peach busy today?" Naruto wiped what little sweat there was on him with a towel, and he saw Mario jump over the castle walls. "She's feeling a little under the weather, let's get you out of here." Mario gave Naruto a thumbs up before he blinked and looked at Boset, who was still on the ground trying to get her breath back. "Looks like you didn't need help though." Mario glanced at Boset, who even now had yet to gain her breath back. She flipped off Mario though. "She's strong, but she has poor cardio training. Let's head back to the castle, I'll bake you a cake, one big enough for you to share with Peach and Luigi." Naruto planned on giving his thanks to the Mario family again. Mario just looked at Naruto. "Does nothing ever bother you?" Mario had to question as he was allowed to walk out of the gates with Naruto, since nobody was even trying to stop them. "Of course not." "Something bothers you, doesn't it?" Mario asked with a growing smile on his face, and Naruto looked away as he crossed his arms. He wasn't going to give away what got to him, not to somebody not related to him. Only 4 people knew the number 2 person that bothered him, and only 3 people knew what his number 1 fear was. "Come on, it's just you and me, nobody has to." Mario was cut off, and Naruto blinked a few times. Oh no, this is bad," Naruto stated when, as if summoned by the very action of thinking about them, Naruto felt stares on the back of his head. Naruto quickly turned around and saw nothing behind him. Naruto turned back around. There was a floating white figure in front of him. "Boo." Naruto went down, eyes rolled into the back of his head and foaming at the mouth when he came face to face with his number 1 fear of all fears. The only thing that could provoke a horrible reaction out of him that he couldn't control if he tried. The Boo race. Ghosts. "Ah. You brought him, you brought the Mushroom Kingdom's most handsome bachelor." Queen Booette. She walked with no legs, as she floated, and her body was nearly pure white as her ghostly tail flowed out from under her white dress. Long white hair that led to a golden crown with a purple jewel on top of it, and all of her teeth were spiky as she gave a wicked grin. The most colorful parts of her were her colorful eyes and her bright pink tongue. She, the queen of the Boo. She, who was born dead, envied the living for their ability to so freely interact with those around them. She, who also envied her own Boo for being able to freely interact with each other. She, who envied the prince of the Mushroom Kingdom for his ability to touch those around him and be touched by them easily. Naruto, you toadstool. Prince of the Mushroom Kingdom. Boo. Beep. I love him so much. Booette watched as his head rolled forward as he passed out from her short little shout. His head rested on her cleavage, his unnatural levels of physical and spiritual energies in his body were so high, he was able to touch her physically, and she could touch him. She ran her hands through his hair and giggled to herself when she got to feel just how soft it was. Oh, his reactions are the best, his body is both hard and soft at the same time. Also, I can touch him. Booette stated as she bounced his face against her cleavage a few more times. You want to get away with this? Oh, be quiet you, me and my dear sweat prince are going to have a long life and then afterlife together, you're just here to bear witness to the ceremony. Booette laughed in a wicked manner as she looked over at the tied up and blindfolded Mario, her sharp teeth posed in a grin. Ahaha. "Oh, you say that you've spotted intruders on the property, well, take care of them," Buette stated when one of her boos came and told her about some green dude with a vacuum cleaner, and Queen Bo said. She kept Naruto's head firmly between her breasts since his heat was the only heat she could feel on her dead body. The sensation of live, well, she was undead and alive at the same time, but an amazing feeling for her. She had no heart, she had no real internal organs either, so being capable of touching him and feeling his inner heat. It was just new and amazing. "My sister will come." "With Peach." "What do you mean Mario and the prince were captured cough cough stupid cold, I don't have the energy to do anything thankfully, Luigi is on his way." Peach spoke with the king over the phone. She had a severe cold, and not only was she unable to rescue the prince like always, but she was unable to even do her job as a plumber as well. "The green guy." "Yes, Luigi Mario, my middle child the green one." Bosette stopped by and recruited him, "I'm sure among the two of them will handle it this time." Mario was kidnapped too. Peach continued to cough into her napkin, since all the stress would just make her cold worse. Nobody ever remembered Luigi. Back with Naruto. Leah. Buette opened her mouth and showed off several rows of extremely sharp teeth that surrounded the inside of her mouth. "Only the strongest of erections can withstand my super blowy hehehe." Buette laughed to herself as she looked in a mirror, having changed into her wedding dress, her real wedding dress. Her teeth turned back to their normal spiky, instead of evil spiky, as she looked at herself in the mirror some more. Seeing her breasts, she had to wonder if he would find any enjoyment in her nipples not being pink. "Just letting you know, I have no such plans on marrying you anyway, any minute now something is going to happen." Naruto had his eyes closed, he had woken back up. Buette, when you weren't staring at her, had little to no shame at all. Even Bosette realized that being naked in front of him wasn't what she needed to do right away, she was wise enough to try and save it for private places. Buette stripped down naked then and there, no shame at all. "Something, as if anything could defeat me," Buette stated as a large hand destroyed a hole in the wall and grabbed her by the face, covered in flames. The rest of the wall shattered moments later as Bosette herself came through the wall. Bosette had magic. Magic could touch ghosts. "Hey bitch, wanna see a magic trick?" Bosette asked as she lifted Buette higher up into the air, keeping a firm grip on her. She slammed Buette into the ground, though the ghost royal phased through the floor easily enough and popped back up. Naruto sighed to himself. He flexed his arms and snapped the binds holding him before he stood up and dusted himself off. "You could escape the entire time," Buette shouted in shock when she saw how he had snapped the ropes strong enough that they could hold even Bosette herself. She was simply stunned when she saw the magical ropes had just snapped so easily. Naruto fixed his suit. The prince, royalty must be calm, orderly, and above all else diplomatic. The ability to end conflict with words is a must. Naruto kept his eyes closed as he walked over to the two women. Naruto grabbed Bosette by the wrist and he also grabbed Buette by her wrist as well before he started to drag the two of them. -13 hours later. "Okay, so how is this going to work?" Bosette was still confused after having the new situation explained to her. Buette was confused, she was just silently confused. "Contract. I, Bosette Koopa, Queen of the Koopa Kingdom, hereby agree that while my attempts to kidnap and marry Naruto U Toadstool are within my political right as a proud royal Koopa. I agree that while my attempts are within my right, that I will not get into political disputes against my Boo counterpart. I will also restrict my own kidnapping attempts to only take place on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. At the same time, I will not kidnap the Prince of the Mushroom Kingdom from Buette if her own kidnapping attempts last longer than her kidnap days, provided that the initial kidnapping happened on one of her agreed-upon kidnapping days. Breaking this contract will result in a declaration of opposition to the signatures on this contract. Signature, Bosette Koopa and Naruto U Toadstool. I, Buette, Queen of the Boo Kingdom, hereby agree that while my attempts to kidnap and marry Naruto U Toadstool are within my ability as an undead creature not beholden to mortal law, that I will obey the rules set forth in the contract. I will not get into political disputes against my Koopa counterpart. I will also restrict my own kidnapping attempts to only take place on Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I also will obey the restriction to not kidnap the prince on days that Bosette has as her kidnapping days and will not kidnap when Bosette has prior claim. Breaking this contract will result in a declaration of opposition to the signatures on this contract. Signature, Buette and Naruto U Toadstool. This contract ensures that your two kingdoms will not go to war over me. Bosette, you won't kidnap me on her days. Buette, you can't kidnap me on her days and neither of you can touch me on Sunday. At the same time, if one of you kidnaps me on Monday, if I'm still kidnapped on Tuesday, then so long as I'm still technically kidnapped by one of you, the other can't do anything. Naruto explained the finer details of the contract to both of the idiots in the room. It had taken 13 hours to get the contract written up, the papers made official, and everything set down on the negotiations table. "If I don't want to follow the contract," Boset stated with a wide smirk. Naruto's eyes turned red. "Yes sir?" Boset shouted as she stood up straight, remembering what happened the last time his eyes turned red. She remembered when she had been slapped by Princess Daisy, and she would rather get 50 of those slaps than come face to face with scary-eye Naruto again. "Is there a bathroom in this place?" Boset asked with a twitch. Buet giggled. "The dead don't need bathrooms. Buet, if you're going to kidnap me, then you'll have to install the basics needs for the living. You see, page 20 through 46 will go into deeper details on what you will need to do. Before your next kidnapping attempt, I expect all 102 rules and regulations on standards of living to be applied to your estate." Naruto explained to Buet, who grabbed the contract papers and looked at the pages with a glancing eye before her eyes began to spin around. "Ahahaha, idiot. Boset, since you have a long history as my kidnapper, I've also laid out several demands on pages 47 through 59, since our kingdoms are further apart. I'll need to be able to access a working office in order to fulfill my princely duties from your castle. Of course, since this prep work will take a while, I believe that you shouldn't be kidnapping me until these steps are completed." Naruto explained her to, and her jaw dropped. "But..." Pages 101 through 104 explain it all in detail, and while not completely needed for the contract, I do suggest both of you read pages 105 through 302. Naruto stated to them as he stood up and popped a kink in his back. Negotiations for the day were done. Time to escape Buet and Boset before they realized that the contract didn't go into effect until next week. "Mama, you're not smart." Boset screamed in shock when she looked at her own child, who was wearing reading glasses to look smart, look at her with eyes filled with pity. Boset Jr. was holding the kidnapping contract in her hands and was reading over the last few pages. The Koopas of the castle were all around them, working to renovate a few of the rooms in the castle to meet the standards of the contract that had been laid out before her. Her child had been very curious, so she had allowed Boset Jr. to read the contract instead of her. She herself had given up halfway and allowed Kamek to read it to order the Koopa troops to build whatever needed to be built. Kamek had looked at her with those same eyes. "Papa tricked you and the bad evil boo," Boset Jr. stated as she turned the page she was looking at around and showed it to her mother. "This contract goes into effect 7 days after it is signed. With much love, Prince Naruto you toadstool, and I hope that when you read this you realize that you should always read a contract before you sign it. P.S. I told Kamek not to tell you about the contract starting date if you didn't find out for yourself. You are a queen and you need to learn diplomacy. Mama Papa knew you can't read well and wrote this at the end of the contract to teach you a lesson. Papa has you pegged," Boset Jr. stated as she looked at her mother with a shake of her head. She had slightly less respect for her mother, at least at this moment, after figuring out that her mother had 6 days where she could have kidnapped her papa and got around the contract's terms. "It has been 2 weeks since the contract had been signed." Well, he spanks you." "Shut up, at least I didn't get spanked," Boset shouted with red cheeks, realizing that she had been played for a complete fool. "See, he wants me to learn diplomacy, he set this up to help me." Boset gushed over the thought of Naruto writing a 431-page contract in 13 hours for her benefit. "So romantic." "Yeah, it's a papa's job to discipline a naughty child, and I am the naughtiest child. Also, you want him to spank you too for far different reasons. He spanks me because he cares about the kind of person I will grow up into. He is calling you an idiot in the nicest words possible, and you're too far gone." Boset Jr. realized that her mother was in fantasy land at the moment. She just sent her mother a look of pity, but only for a moment. She had to get Papa and Mama together and fast, so those fantasies became a great reality for her and her future family situation. "Queen Boset, Princess Boset Jr., I have urgent news from the Mushroom Kingdom and a gift from Prince Naruto." "What?" Boset shouted as a Koopa came into the room while pushing a large pakage, a very big pakage that was big enough to fit Boset's whole body in the pakage. She was shocked by the size of the gift and she saw a letter on top of it. She might not like to read, but she certainly wanted to read a note from her prince. She ripped open the letter. "Dear Boset, I've finished several of the sports tracks I have been working on and among them is go-karting. You and your daughter are hereby invited to attend the first important race. In this box is a gift of 2 personalized go-karts built by yours truly. Do not break them. The race begins in 1 week, so please use this time to practice your racing and learn the mechanics of the go-kart. P.S. Boset Jr., you can practice on yours as well, but you go to bed at 8:30 every night or you won't race. Junior, you can race too, but you have to go to bed earlier." Boset read the letter and she gave it to her daughter to read as well. She pouted. "But Naruto." Let's see, yep, that looks good for Mario. With that I finished the Queen Boo, Bowsette Jr., Mario, Luigi, Peach, Mario's Yoshi, a Toad, and Koopa carts. Just a few more to go, and then I'll be done. Naruto said as he wiped his forehead of sweat. The sun was blistering, and he had just finished applying the paint to Mario's cart to make it the same red as his hat. Since this was something important, he decided to see to it himself. The racing was very good for not only legalized gambling, but it was also very good for tourism and expanding trade relations to other kingdoms as the sport grew more popular. He already had a track built on Isle Delfino, thanks to them being a tourist trap themselves, they had been more than willing to go for it. Sadly, other kingdoms weren't going to be nearly as accepting of his experiment without proof that it could work out well. Prince, surely you can leave this to somebody else. You're a prince, this work is beneath you. Toadsworth lectured Naruto on his own position. Naruto just grinned. Honestly, I like this kind of work, it feels good to do something that a prince wouldn't usually do every now and then. It's Sunday, so Queen Boo and Bowsette aren't coming today, been a while since I've had such a peaceful day. Naruto. There goes that day. Naruto dusted himself off and stood up straight before he turned and saw Daisy there with a wide smile on her face. He put a smile on his own, though it was a little forced. She appraised him. You look good in that racing suit. Daisy complimented him, since she had yet to see him outside of his suit in a lot time. Even as a child, he only ever really wore suits tailor-made to complement his body. Right now though, he was wearing a racing suit with the top unzipped and wrapped around his waist. This was her first time seeing his naked chest muscles in a long time, and she noticed how developed he had become. He was an adult man now, so it made sense for his muscles to fill out naturally as time went on, but he always kept that lean physique, so she just sort of took it for granted. Thank you didn't send a letter to inform me you were coming, any reason for that? Naruto asked her with a raised eyebrow. It was quite rude to interrupt somebody when they were working. Oh, that, I was just popping by here on my way with some business with the Bean Kingdom. The Mushroom Kingdom is on the way, so I had my plane stop here. Daisy waved off his concern, and Naruto sighed in relief. She wasn't going to be here long. Shygal walked up carrying a part that Naruto needed, and she passed it to him and pointed to the next cart that he was building. She nodded her head when he sent her a thumbs up before she grabbed the spray can and went over to work on painting the numbers on the carts. She was the only one who had any skill in spray painting anything, the others lacked the artistic skill for such a thing. Ooh. Goomba was enjoying testing the carts out on quality, since she had the smallest figure, but still somehow weighed more than the others, she was the best suited for this task. She wanted to help with something after all, and currently she was doing a test drive on her own cart. Daisy looked at what was going on with a raised eyebrow. Okay, I'll bite, what is going on? Daisy asked as she gestured to everything. Shygal made some arm motions at her. We're just building some go-karts, don't worry too much about it Daisy, keep your clothes on. Naruto shouted in shock when Daisy took her dress off, wearing only her sports bra and spandex shorts underneath. She was always a sporty tomboy, and now she was hardly dressed at all as she walked forward. She grinned. Pass my the wrench, I've got a couple of hours, let's crank out another of these babies. This looks super fun. Daisy grabbed a screwdriver. 1. That is a screwdriver, and 2. I'm not using a wrench right now. I'm welding metal parts together and making the frame. Naruto palmed his face before he just gave a deep sigh. He smiled after a moment though. Okay, you can help if you want. Not with the welding, but you can help fuel them up. Naruto grabbed a cart and started to push it, and she went to his other side and started to help him push it. Daisy wasn't evil or somebody he hated. When Daisy was trying to be nice and not acting like a tomboy, then she was nice to be around. It just so happened these moments were rare for her. Later. Oops, I broke it, oh no. Bowsette looked at the destroyed remains of her go-kart and she looked at the wall she crashed into. She paled a little when she saw her prince's hard work go to complete waste in front of her very eyes. Pacing back and forth. She was in trouble. Hammock. Get the workers, tell them to change the design and make it more durable. I might have broken it, but at the very least I can tell him that I wanted to customize it instead. I'll call I the Koopa Queen cart. Increase its power too. Bowsette decided to just go all in. Sadly, she wasn't the only one. All around the Mushroom and Koopa kingdoms, everyone who was getting their go-karts were all crashing and destroying them. She wasn't the only one who would customize her cart. Bowsette cared to explain actually, better yet would both of you like to explain why the go-karts I worked hard on are so very different than when I shipped them to you. Naruto seemed quite polite in his speaking. His eyes were closed though as he spoke, since his eyes never lied about what he was feeling, he couldn't keep them open if he was feeling as much raw fury as he was at the moment. He had laid eyes on everyone's go-karts, and not a single one of them was in the same condition that he had sent it to them in. Everyone had changed the designs completely, a design that he worked in such a way that everyone would have a fair and equal playing field. Slightly more power for those with heavier bodies, so that the speed of the vehicle would be the same as those with lighter drivers. More traction on vehicles with lighter drivers, so that they could make turns a little easier without worrying about slipping. Everything was planned as to not give any one go-kart an advantage over the others when driven by the person it was intended for. I thought it. Queen Bo said of the Koopa Kingdom. I crashed it, me and Junior were playing around and we drove them off a bridge and they were destroyed by a chain chomp. Bo said admitted to what she had done. She had been practicing driving, but it had been so much fun she just simply got distracted and didn't pay attention. She crashed into Junior by mistake and the two of them went off a bridge and into their chain chomp pit. The chain chomps didn't like to be disturbed, so they attacked and one of them destroyed the carts. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. Naruto grabbed her by the ear. Did you not read the instruction manual that I sent with the go-kart, the manual that explains how each go-kart was carefully made for you, or how you're supposed? The manual listed very clearly what kind of modifications I would allow. I'm allowed to modify. Do not interrupt me, Queen Bo said of the Koopa Kingdom. Naruto told her with his closed eyes still managing to twitch. He kept up the polite tone of voice, a miracle, and other than his closed eyes, his face maintained the same deadpan smile. If anything, only the numerous kidnappings allowed Bose to understand just how dangerous the mood Naruto was in would be. Naruto was pissed. She had completely redid the design of the cart and changed it into a 10-foot-tall rocket on wheels. Yes sir. Now you see these are specialized go-kart races, and while I did say in the instructions and race rules, you can modify your cart, I listed very specific rules that needed to be maintained. Look at Bosette Jr., her cart is modified by has still managed to follow all of the modification guidelines I set forward. Naruto gestured to Junior's cart, which was about the same size as the cart that had been destroyed, and while it was shaped differently, it was clearly still a go-kart by nature, and not a racing monster. I didn't want to get spanked. So, instead of coming to me and honestly explaining your situation, I would have been happy to come here and take the carts away to be repaired, but no, I had to find out because I noticed that your castle budget seemed to be lacking some funds, and there were receipts for parts you had no reason purchasing. Naruto stated as he unbuttoned his jacket and he set it down over the chair. He rolled up his sleeves and went to the toolbox in the garage they were in. He was going to tear down this monster and build it back, but following the rules and guidelines that he had set forth. They weren't the only ones who crashed their go-karts, but they were the only ones to hide the fact. Mario submitted an application for legal modifications to his go-kart that would change the frame, but not change the weight and statistics of the kart overall. Luigi changed the kart's design to be much like a vacuum cleaner in appearance, but still basically be the same overall. Even Peach went through the rule-following line of thought and explained to Naruto that she crashed her kart while she was taking it for a spin and crashed it into a tree while avoiding a Yoshi that popped in out of nowhere. Queen Bouette sent a letter saying that she crashed it because she forgot that she was driving a vehicle that couldn't go through walls and tried to drive it at full speed through a wall. He could understand the honest mistake there. Sorry, Bosette got a screwdriver tossed into her hands. We have about 6 hours until Peach gets here to rescue me, so until then, we're going to take this thing apart. Then when I get back to my castle, I'll take your designs into consideration when slight modifications. Naruto stated as he slammed his fist into the side of the vehicle. It fell apart. Oh my, Bosette watched her hard work come apart so easily. This is why I created the go-karts to be able to be modified, but you clearly didn't follow the modify instructions. Either my Naruto covered his mouth in surprise when he saw the destroyed remains of the original go-kart mixed into the parts of the horror that had replaced it. Naruto took a deep and calming breath before he bit the inside of his cheek to control himself. His nerves were close to their limit. See, I made sure the original cart was inside of it, I couldn't throw away something that you gave me, it's a very precious gift from my future husband. Bosette boldly proclaimed. She spoke with such pride that her own daughter was filled with pride at her words as well. Mama could never. This does not make up for the fact you tried to hide your rule breaking from me. Now, let's get to work in building. Naruto unbuttoned his shirt and took it off so that nothing would get on his clothes. Bosette's jaw slightly dropped when she, for the first time in a long time, saw what the prince looked like without a shirt on. His body was still just as perfect as it always was, but the way he was slightly sweating from the heat of the inside of her castle. The way that he got to work on rebuilding the cart she destroyed made him seem far less like a simple prince. Yes sir. Bosette and Junior both saluted Naruto. -8 hours later. Prince, I'm here to save you. Peach was confused when she saw Naruto holding up a finger to silence her. Bosette Jr. was laying on her belly, fast asleep with her head in his lap. Bosette was covered in grease and was asleep on her side. She was late because one of the castles and fake bow sets was a lot tougher than usual. She didn't expect to see her prince was buttoning up his jacket while petting Junior on top of the head, the young Koopa grabbing his pants and holding on tightly. He gently picked up Junior and held her like a princess. She was a princess actually, before he went over to Bowset and placed the woman's daughter in her lap. Give me a moment, it would be rude to just leave without leaving a note. How has the progress on your cart gone? Naruto asked Peach in a low tone. He was already writing a letter to Bowset explaining that Peach had rescued him and that she fell asleep. Usually, this would end with Bowset being thrown into a bomb or tossed into lava, but this was a very peaceful resolution to the usual kidnapping outcome. Oh, they're going well. Peach was still a little weirded out. Are you sure it's okay to invite them to the race? The Koopa Kingdom's leadership wishes to conquer other nations because their leader is a woman who is all alone in this world. Bowset is not evil by nature, she was raised in a way that she never grew up with rules or regulations. Bowset is many things, and I believe deep in her heart she can be a good person. I want to extend my hand in fellowship to her, so I will not exclude her from the race, simply because of the tension her nation creates. Naruto finished writing the letter and he placed it next to Bowset. He walked over to Peach and he nodded to her to show he was ready to be rescued. She's evil. I'll be the judge of that. Naruto responded simply. He knew some things that Peach didn't know after all. Is he dead? No, just drained. There was a meeting between all of the kingdom rulers and he had to deal with a lot of shit. Koopa stated in response to Goomba's question. She noticed the woman was walking with a bit of a limp and didn't question it at first. Naruto looked dead on his throne. His eyes were looking in two different directions and his mouth was just lazily hanging open. He wasn't just exhausted from the meeting, but all of the other stuff that he had on his plate. He was doing all of the planning for not just the Mushroom Kingdom, but he had also taken it upon himself to do work for the Koopa Kingdom, and with Isle Delfino being so popular he was making a lot of work for himself dealing with them. Then there was the Bean Kingdom, and that was a whole different can of worms. Equalizing the unfair coin exchange rate. The Bean Kingdom loved to take advantage of the Mushroom Kingdom by changing coin exchange rates so that they could exchange coins for unequal amounts, change the rates, and then do it again for a profit. He hated it because getting it to stop was taking an absurd amount of his time and a horrible amount of paperwork that was just getting added onto his ever-growing pile of work. He got kidnapped by Queen Boo yesterday, which was never good for his mental health and further exhausted him. Shygal was giving him a shoulder massage, but it was having zero effect on him at all. He just existed at the moment as his brain did a complete reboot to rest up. She watched with her head tilting as Piranha Plant tried to sneak in front of her son so that she could give him a beep. His response was 100% conditioned though, even brain dead he could react by sticking his fingers in her mouth. He then proceeded to hook his fingers against the roof of her mouth and tossed her onto her butt. Ow. You deserved that. Goomba put her hands in her jacket pocket and walked out of the room. I'm going to go to the store and get some lemons and oranges. Shygal, you want to run a bath. Goomba knew just what Naruto needed to relax. I'll keep the lower class out of the throne room. You do realize that none of us are actual royalty, right? We're his moms, not queens. Bitch, I'm a queen and I slay is what Shygal is saying with her body language. Koopa translated the sassy body language their silent partner liked to use. Somebody had to be a translator and she fit the role. Soon, they all left the room. The window shattered. The second Naruto had a person standing nearby him that was not a family member, his eyes straightened back out and he fixed his suit. By the time Bowset was looking at him, he was completely recovered on the outside. He didn't care how emotionally, physically, and mentally exhausted he was, he would try to never appear as anything less than his best in front of anyone who had an opinion of him that might change. I'm subtracting the repair costs for that window from your treasure vault. That was a stained glass window. Naruto was picked up, tied up with magical ropes, and tossed over Bowset's shoulder. The second she wasn't able to see his face returned back to his brain-dead expression. Hahaha. This time, we're going to a new castle that Peach will never find you at. We'll get married and our kingdoms will become mine. Bowset started jumped back into her clown floater and started to fly out of the hole in the window. By the way, I need some help with my finances again. Bowset whispered into her hand. She wasn't so good with math. Also, there was unrest with her army since some of them were complaining about how hard they were being worked. She was allowing them to have 12 hours off a week to relax since her beloved prince had given her blueprints and told her it would help her build up tourism in her kingdom. It wasn't her fault that they couldn't work to meet her expectations of them. 12 hours off for relaxation and working 18 hours a day for 6 days a week was to be expected. They were working for the glory of the Koopa Kingdom under her orders, that should be the only motivation that needed. At the castle. 17 massive stacks of paperwork. It's all that math stuff, could you help me? Papa. Junior rushed to Naruto and hugged him around the waist, while Naruto just stared at the paperwork, with his brain-dead expression starting to leak through onto his neutral face. He tried to maintain a peaceful look, but the cracks started to show. He had not had a day to relax in months. His lips started to bleed from how hard he was biting it to keep his cool. He could feel his temper starting to flare up at how much paperwork she had allowed to pile up in the 3 days that he had been gone. He could see how many of them were complaints from her army that needed to be addressed, and it was disturbing how she ruled through brute force and somehow maintained a loyal population. I don't feel so well, so I'm going to lay down after I finish this. Naruto pat Junior on the head so that she would let go of him, and he walked right by the paperwork completely before his forehead smacked against the stone wall behind it. He fell flat on his ass before he noticed that his vision was starting to blur. He found himself staring at the ceiling moments later. Scary was when you found yourself staring at the ceiling with no memory of how you got onto your back on the floor or why the back of your head suddenly hurt. Scary was when for a brief moment your brain completely blacked out. The second he had tried to do any work, it had been like his body had started to shut down in response. He could see multiple Bosets and JRS were shaking him and their mouths were moving, but he could hear no sounds coming out of them. No, wait, he could hear them, but it sounded like they were shouting from very far away. He had reached peak exhaustion. His body completely and utterly gave out, not even his voice was working as he opened and closed his mouth in an attempt to tell them to take him to a bed to rest. Either way, he was fading in and out of consciousness quickly, and the more of his brain he used to bepize the situation he was in, the faster he could feel himself fading. His exhaustion paralyzed his body. His mental exhaustion slowed his mind. His emotional exhaustion put a stopper on most of his emotions. The floor was a good enough place to rest. He deserved a break. End chapter. So this part ends here. If you want to see next part of this series, like the video now and share the story with your friends. Bye bye.